preparing to live stream the meeting.
Sweet.
Yeah, it should be in, feel free to just start dropping information into the box, like your YouTube channel. Do you have a YouTube channel?
Yeah, I'm pushing more in Vimeo right now.
Oh, nice. Probably
yeah,
the smart thing to do.
It's wild, man. I'm keeping track of all the Prism stuff and trying to pay attention to the data rights and privacy and the EFF.
Is it heavy or what?
So there's a bill right now introduced to Congress that has to do with completely abolishing end-to-end encryption.
Oh, shit. What?
Right.
Really?
Facts. They want to kneecap all end-to-end encryption with safety as the excuse. They say
Yeah,
that
yeah.
having any end-to-end encryption is bad because we don't have a white team strong enough to break it.
Yeah.
And I understand that, but at the same time, it's really
Crazy.
important to be able to have safe conversations.
Yeah.
Like Julian Assange, who's still being turned into a mockery. Like, I feel so deeply for that man and what he's up to, as well as the Edward Snowden stuff, as well as all the data privacy stuff. I mean, even in this context, even streaming over Zoom, I think it's important to be aware of the technology that's being used, just because so many people aren't. They just don't even think about it.
No, I don't most of the time. I'm just like create, put out, create,
For sure, for sure. And
It's
I
easy
think
to get.
as long as that works, as long as you're creating content and you want to share it, that's good. But there's a lot of people who are creating content and they're kind of back and forth about sharing it, and I think that's where the issue is.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When people don't actually love what they up to. So, dang. All right. So I'm up on the YouTube. I got the YouTube stream. Looks like it's live on my end.
It's live. It should be live. It's been live for a good couple of seconds. But yeah, so if you do have those links, just drop them, because I don't have a comment section that I could put stuff into before we started. Just so everyone knows who you are.
No worries. I'm more than
everyone,
happy to.
My bad. Everyone, welcome Richie ZXY to the channel. He reached out through one of Q Reeves's videos, actually. So you found me. You were watching the live that I did with Q Reeves, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Dope. Nice. So he follows Q Reeves. Would you say a lot? Or do you do what? I guess we can do the whole conversation.
No worries. I followed a guy named Sevan Bomar, who's part of a secret energy group that does a bunch of streaming from Costa Rica, and I've been following them for probably like 8 or 9 years. And recently I listened to Sevan Bomar say something about Q Reeves, like he mentioned him by name and said that he really appreciated what he was up to. So at that time, I kind of turned my attention towards that name, and the same day he was live streaming with you. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll see what this guy's right, for sure. And in that sense, like I mentioned before, Keith, your style is really grounded. You like help people kind of bring down, even if it's like willy-nilly fairy stuff and they're kind of out there in the deep end. I got nothing against earth magic. It's great. But like you can get so far out that you kind of lose the plot. You hear me?
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to be able to chat with you about the things that are pertinent, because you got a lot of esoteric and occult information coming forward. And I think a lot of it has context and power if people want to use it to better their experience.
Yeah, hell yeah. And that's what I was trying to get at, what your angle was about with Q. Like we talked about it a little before. What I titled this though? The Biohacking Yogi.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you, I guess that's the lens that you see everything through. So I'm looking hermetics for something, and you're looking biohacking yogi to fix problems, to balance out things.
It's in the participation model. Absolutely. I think hermeticist, when I think of hermitage, I think of like going off in the woods and like kind of being quiet and isolated, and that kind of inner space, like the hermit crab. I think there's a lot of power within that. However, in the Western magical tradition, if you're not accepting the core hermetic system of the elements and of geometry, like circles and squares and triangles, all of those could be considered in hermetic knowledge. You're just kind of playing in the dirt. I mean, I've gone super deep into Tibetan Buddhism and in different systems, which I actually think is more of a death cult on its deeper lenses. It's like white side necromancy. If you get super deep into it, like the monks, like the Dalai Lama, the robes that he wears, that orange and that red, that's the same clothes that you wrap the dead in, man. So they're wearing the garments so that their soul can die, and then they can walk in the next breath. So they're renouncing all forms of ego. So if they think the world's supposed to be a certain way, their spirit's ready to just kind of depart and then walk in as a new soul. But that's no shit. That's from the pujas and all the prayers that they're doing. They're honoring the dead self that they haven't become yet, if that makes sense.
Whoa. I see why you called it white necromancy.
For sure. And so in that way, I would try to distill all the practices and bring them into like a biohacking context. Like I just got
Hmm.
done teaching a community yoga earlier today, and a lot of that's just breathing. Just breathe in, breathe out. Because you have to sharpen your mind and focus your mind to breathe on purpose. And
Yeah.
that kind of yogi guru relationship, like to me, a guru is like a grandma. Just because you're somebody's guru doesn't mean you're my guru. So what that also means is like yogi or role model. Just because you're somebody's role model or you're somebody's yogi doesn't mean you have to be mine. But if you're acting as a role model, you have the moral responsibility to be a good role model.
Fair enough.
And that's where I'm seeing a lot of traction because there's a lot of great role models talking about the bad stuff. Where are the good role models talking about the good stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Enter this conversation.
Enter biohacking yogi.
Facts. Here we be. Do you have any experience with yoga yourself?
With a yogi?
With yoga at all? The
Oh
process of
yeah.
yoga.
Yeah, definitely. I um was obsessed with hot yoga for a while, for a good couple months, for a good while I could afford it. And the first free month or the first $30 month wore off, and the month after that.
Right.
And I've done the hatha yogas, and it was never a daily practice, but there was a couple years I was in it deep, and nothing hit me like the hot yoga did. I felt like a god, really, like the day after I would do hot yoga.
Totally. Absolutely. And in my mind, that's a form of biohacking, which would be the heat.
Uh-huh.
Because to define the term biohacking, a biohacker would be anybody who does something to their body to give them an edge. So if somebody carries a backpack so that they can pull off the backpack and run faster, they would be biohacking using weight.
That's the
If somebody's
piccolo effect.
right, totally Piccolo Goku, that Wim Hof stuff, going in the cold ice and breathing so that you can get out and like bust tail, all those would be considered biohacking.
Uh-huh.
Now, you want to push it further, you're getting into like adaptogens and nootropics, like
Mm-hmm.
drinking ginseng, drinking rhodiola, having these
Mm-hmm.
different tinctures, those would be considered a form of biological hacking. So, as far as the yogi context, I'm just trying to give people an example. Like, I don't expect everybody to take a tincture every day. I try to
Yeah.
take some kind of tincture every day, at least one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't expect everybody to drink tea every day. But I think if I go a whole day without drinking tea, I've lost something because I had an opportunity, right, to make like a good relationship with this plant. I could
uh,
continue nurturing the
yeah.
agreements I have with Skullcap or continue to build the relationship with Catmint. So
Uh-huh.
does it
That's
give
neat.
more context about like the hacking and the bio and the yogi and all the whatnots?
All right, I have a specific question for you then.
Our way. Yeah.
Earlier you mentioned people being tied into the elements when trying to figure shit out. I'm
Right.
paraphrasing there, but I had an exceptional reaction to hot yoga, and up until COVID, it was at least twice a week in the sauna for 6-7 years at the gym, and that was always like my high. Like literally felt like I was on drugs walking home from the sauna every time. It was amazing. Um, like what does that say about a person towards the heat? Are they lacking heat, or do they just dwell in heat, or because like not everyone
Right.
gets a kick out of the sauna, or
For
like
sure.
hot yoga.
I hear you. I hear you. And I just want to jump on like the Avatar Airbender dimension for a minute,
Uh
just because
huh.
that's a great way to talk about the elements. So we're going to set aside the water bending. We're not going to worry about that right now. We're also not going to talk about the air bending, even though we're air bending right now. We're like using electronically supported telepathy to bend air to make words so we can converse. That's neither here
Yeah,
nor there, right? We're
that's
talking through earth
airbending. Like,
for sure, for sure. But we're going to focus on the fire bending because we're
uh-huh.
talking about heat, right?
Uh-huh.
So Kundalini, or in the Tibetan system, it's called Tumo. There's an internal fire. There's a fire within your body. So if you take a cold shower, you're creating heat within your body, and then you're radiating heat from within. Okay. When you're going to a hot yoga sauna or a studio or anywhere that has external heat, you have to remove your defenses to that heat and allow the heat to come in. So one of them is an acceptance of the fire, like you're fire walk with us, we're third eye visionaries. You're moving through that idea
Uh-huh.
versus the other type where you're generating the heat from within your body. Because I'm sure if you unrolled a yoga mat and did the yoga poses, after about a half hour, you're going to feel like you're in the heat because you got
Yeah.
your body moving and you created that force. But right now, you're relying on the illusion. That's where the fire is until you remember you are the creator of the fire, even if it comes to you through the illusion because you went to the sauna or you went to the hot yoga or you danced around in the sun, to music.
Uh-huh.
So the relationships would go deeper if you want to see how you connect with fire as a consciousness, because there's the elemental consciousness of water, like all of the oceans as one being. There's Gaia, which would be like the earth.
Uh-huh.
There's
Uh-huh.
all of the air together, which would be pneuma or life or breath, however you want to interpret that. But
Uh-huh.
specifically the fiery force, that sounds like you zoom out a little bit and you're having a one-to-one discussion with fire, like you're dancing with your own inner flame. And it's less of a twin flame, like you're working on your own flame. And once your flame is set, then you realize you're resonating in like a bonfire of the planet. But a
Uh-huh.
lot of people fear conflict, fear heat, fear pressure, fear people looking at them. And those are ones who are trying to hide from their flame rather than what you're doing is kind of riding it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 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 yeah. So
This help?
it's just the relationship you have to.
Totally. The same kind of relationship you have to plants or to minerals or to rocks or to animals or to other people or to angels or aliens or whatever is beyond us. You hear me?
Uh-huh. Hold on, someone's coming. Oh, what's up, man? Are you just dropping it off? Nice. You could just you could just leave right there if you want. Oh shit. Or just leave it there. I'll get it. I'm on a live right now. I'll handle it when you're. Yeah. You guys doing good over there?
Yeah, I just did a house tour down the street. So
Oh, nice.
just had drop it off to you guys.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
All right. Peace out, man. Sorry about that.
You're good. No worries, man.
Where was I/we? We were talking about relationship.
Fire. Elemental
Fire,
relationships.
elemental
Right.
relationships. Yeah. So, yeah, I asked because one of my friends told me, she's like, "Oh, you're Aries and it's already fire. It's not too much heat, and you should be balancing that with cool to keep it." So I was, I don't actually don't look into that sort of energetic side of the hermetics like you're talking about. I definitely lean towards the philosophical and that to the how the elements interact with each other and sacred geometry and the Fibonacci and all that stuff, you know.
And I think there's a lot to be said for the esoteric mysteries when people dive that deep. I think this is the kind of thing where we're sharing notes because we've got different pathways in occult information. Like you've done a bunch of research and read a bunch of things. I know that you wrote a book that's online. It's about, the three initiates.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
for sure. Very good. I'm just making sure I do my homework.
Yeah.
It's important to be excited what you're excited about. Like I've made a simple little ebook about mudras, about hand yoga,
Oh, nice.
because I find myself teaching that to tons of people. So it became practical to make a PDF of it.
Yeah.
I think to spin this in a different direction that may be useful, the Mayan cosmology is also sort of related to life and death. I would be hesitant to call it necromancy per se, but it's very much a life-oriented system. And there's a lunar body and a solar body, right? So in your solar body, it's the daytime body. And what you're telling me is that you're enjoying heat-based experiences with your solar body.
Correct.
So that probably would mean to me in your lunar body, you're enjoying cool-based experiences. So you'd probably be in like super deep caves in your dream space, going through really intense adventures because that the pendulum swinging on this half means that you want the super bright in your face while you're here. You hear me?
Yeah.
So it's using that
I
kind
do
of
have a lot of cave dreams, man. A lot.
weird.
I
For
just
sure.
had one last night.
Nice. I'd say from the allegory of the cave, whenever I'm in a cave dream, I'm always trying to turn around. Like I'm always trying to see what's behind me because usually there's somebody back there making fingers in front of the fire that's causing the shadows of whatever I'm seeing.
Uh-huh. I'll keep that in mind.
Word, for sure. What are your thoughts on dreams? What do you think dreams are, man?
I think they vary. I think sometimes it can be a premonition because I've had dreams where I was like, this is crazy. I've had this experience. Or just your subconscious psyche projecting shit. You know what I mean? It's giving you a sort of exactly what you said. Your own subconscious is doing the projection board for your consciousness in the dream space, and it's just like I'm always at my childhood, or I'm always dreaming about dinosaurs, or like always have waves in my dream. Always have huge fucking colossal waves in my dreams that I'm not running from. I'm playing in, but I'm still like terrified. You know what I mean? So I know that it's something, especially when I'm like, oh, this is going on in my life, or
For
decisions
sure.
I'm avoiding and stuff comes up. It's like, oh shit, kind of thing, you know?
Well, it sounds like that you're still maintaining focus and lens to your own consciousness. A lot of people are kind of in the passenger seat of their own life. And so to
Yeah.
kind of play backwards, I'd say if you're having awareness specifically of like giant waves in a dream, if
Mhm.
you're going to do dream talk, like I've tried to work with, Robert Moss is a very powerful active dreamer. He teaches from Australia,
Uh-huh.
and they're low enough on the latitude lines. Yeah, latitudinal lines that the sun doesn't go down in the summertime. It just kind of becomes dusk.
Oh wow.
So the indigenous there developed a way to sleep that you're still kind of conscious. And what that means is that they've turned their whole life into a dream. They don't like clock out and go to sleep and then wake up and clock back in. They're always on. They just kind of fuzz and then come back and keep going. So Robert
Uh-huh.
Moss, mossdreams.org, there's a lot of work about it, a lot of exercises. But in the spirit of that, if you take a piece of paper and you draw a surfboard and you have that surfboard underneath your bed when you go to sleep and you see a giant wave, you might have a surfboard because you kind of dream planted it there for yourself.
That's such a good, clever way of planting shit in your dreams, man.
Absolutely. It's
I'll
inception to
write
the
it
next level.
down, you know what I mean? But it's like, I'm going to dream about this tonight, you know? But that's about it. I don't
Dang.
actually do it, like involve yourself that much is probably got to work that much more, you know?
Mm-hmm. I think if you really want to dive into that kind of dialogue and narrative, there's a lot, again, in Tibetan Buddhism is where some of my roots are. They'll talk about it like the bardo. I don't know if you're familiar with the books of the dead, either the Egyptian or the Tibetan. They talk about the rituals and the ceremonies for when you're passing.
Mm-hmm.
But when you consider the bardo as the liminal space where the unmanifest exist and the yet to manifest kind of hang out,
Mm-hmm.
when you go to sleep, you might decide to wear a necklace. You might decide to wear earrings or a hat or like wristbands or something so that when you are in that dream, the subtle movements of your body on this side cause you to be aware of things on that side.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know that I wore 10 rings on all my fingers for a while when I go to sleep because then when I dream, I have very different dreams than if I didn't have any rings on my fingers.
I see. I see.
Now, to create that kind of sleep yoga means that the bed is a sacred place. So I'm not like reading a book in bed or like texting on my phone in bed. I'm trying to treat it like a yoga mat or like a dojo almost.
Interesting.
Because then when the body's spiritually focused enough in that space, when you lay down to sleep, you know you're in your container. So you can have a dream about building a go-kart with your ex-landlord to realize that maybe that was the first person that you didn't know that trusted you and encouraged you to trust yourself. And it actually has to do with a dialogue of belief because you haven't invested belief in yourself as much as you've believed in other people.
Mhm.
However, a lot of this is supposed to, in my mind, it's supposed to come from our parents' parents. We're supposed to get it from they who already knows rather than they who are knowing and we who are learning.
Mm-hmm.
But we lost that hole somewhere. So now it's up to a lot of younglings, younger people to freestyle our way into the grandparent role.
Freestyle is a good way of putting it too, man.
Word, gratitude.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. I definitely feel like I'm freestyling all the time. People ask me questions or all have questions. It's like, I have no idea.
I mean, isn't that like the roots of hip hop? Isn't that what it's about? Just freestyling, b-boying, spray
Yeah.
paint for sure.
B-boy, that's what yeah. For b-boying itself is even freestyling, breakdancing. Like, it's not even just the hip hop flow style of freestyling. Graffiti
Facts.
artists freestyle bombs when they throw them up on the walls, and breakdancers freestyle. They just string together everything they've learned into some cool new shit.
And the freestyle of the written word would have arguably evolved into like the rhyme pattern or the rhyme scheme, which arguably is happening right now in an accelerated way because basically you and I are consolidating our thoughts against each other and then creating word patterns that are grammatically structured enough that we know what the other person intended to say. If I
Say that
just
again?
said like, right, for sure. If I just said outer space cool, humans from Spaceland, that wouldn't really have context. But if I'd say that the infinite vastness of the sky when we look up into the world reminds me how small we all are, that's a different kind of poetry. And
Yeah.
being able to freestyle with grammar structure, using syntax to get people woke or explain that things are on fleek, like all of that works. But the structure is the intention.
So there's two different philosophies that I come across a lot, and I'm curious what you think about it.
Hmm.
One is someone like Terrence McKenna, who's all about language and how important it is. And then
Sure.
there's I'm not sure I can think of a good opposite that you guys would know. But the idea is almost like words get in the way. Like to describe something at like the all is to do it in injustice. You know what I mean? So it's best left there's no words, in other words.
Right, like
So
the Tao. If you could speak of it as not the Tao.
Exactly. There you go. That's something I was looking for. Thank you.
No worries, for sure. That would be like the Alan Watts perspective against like the
Yeah.
for sure. I'm up on that whole family, the whole crew of people that went with Timothy Leary out to the woods and ate a whole
Oh
bunch and then
man.
became the superheroes, became Ram Dass, became Alan Watts, became Tim Leary. Like those are the heavy hitters. I got a lot to say for Terrence McKenna. Now, besides the fact that you can get the dialogue of Terrence McKenna and Timothy Leary because they did a debate and you can find it on YouTube. So it's crazy when they go neck and neck.
What about that?
Man, Leary's flexing on him like better living through chemistry, and Terrence McKenna's kind of like, well, if the aliens think you should, like there's some distance in it, you know? The McKenna brothers are from small town Paonia, Colorado. Don't know if you know this, but
No, I don't.
Terrence and Dennis McKenna grew up in a tiny, tiny town. No stoplight, tiny town. No fast food, tiny town. Tiny, tiny town. They were the first ones to go to South America in like the 70s and to try the mushroom experience and the DMT experience and the ayahuasca experience. And then they bring stories of it back up and were of the earliest ilk trying to make that popular. In the autobiography that Dennis McKenna wrote, Brotherhood of the Screaming Abyss, he explained how Dennis was like a mild-mannered accountant, very introverted and didn't want to do it. But Terrence McKenna was really vocal and kind of brought his brother on along and wanted to be outgoing about it. Tying this forward, are you familiar with Baba Kalindi E?
No.
Okay, Baba Kalindi E just recently passed. He's a martial arts expert in a specific kind of martial arts in Africa, where after you hit black belt, they start feeding you mushrooms during training. So you're fighting.
Going on a long time, or just a new practice?
Oh, it's super old. It's super old.
Damn.
And after you get to a certain level of black belt, there's no more fighting. You just eat like 2 ounces raw and then lay down and then go into the stars. Yeah, Baba Kalindi E, for sure. He's one of the wisdom teachers that just recently came down because of the COVID 1984 stuff, for reals. But there's a lot to be said for people who want to accept their spirituality with or without tools. Like, again, the external tools could be whether it's a tea, whether it's a drink, whether it's a food, whether it's a breath practice. And the internal tools would be like, I had a near-death experience and now my life is different. I had a child and now my life is different. It's where's that locus of control? You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For sure. Hopefully this answers your question.
I think so. I'm not even sure what my original question was.
The inside or the outside, Terrence McKenna versus Alan Watts.
Yeah, the words or no words. Answered it tenfold, actually.
Word. For sure. I'm just trying to make sure that we check the boxes going through.
Sure. And I appreciate that, because I'm normally, like we were talking about earlier, I'm like, did we get to the point, actually? Did we do the thing we were supposed to do? Yeah, we did it. We nailed it. So if anyone checking in right now or after we started, this is Richie, ZXY. Actually, you go ahead and give us the reason behind your name, and then you could, I guess, a proper bio, where you came from, how you got into it, that sort of thing that we probably should have done at the beginning.
Sure, I guess. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, just did you have a near-death experience? Is that why you brought that up, or have you always been this way? Like, why all of a sudden one day you seem to be pretty balls deep in this world? Like, there had to have been a story, you know?
Word, for sure. Well, I'll touch on that as I kind of go back for the origin point. But in 2018, over the course of a month, I think it was like March, I had like 10 near-death experiences in 1 month. Like, I was just going a walk and I was going somewhere, and all of a sudden my body would say, turn. And just, I'd like turn and start to walk into traffic. It's like, whoa. Or I'd be driving, and all of a sudden my body was like, go. And I just instinctively, like, just careening into the center point. My brain would have to override and like rescue myself back out. What I realized is that this was something called the death urge. And the death urge is studied in some systems where the body's ready. It's done. The vessel wants to end its life, but the spirit can choose to kind of keep driving. So as a child, I had everybody's got a crazy life. I had a couple of traumatic experiences as a child that kind of reframed my thinking. And around 15, 16, I realized that the internet was going to be really, really real. Like, I was always told, don't talk to strangers on the internet. Be careful what websites you go on the internet. And I think all this is true. You should be aware of who you're talking to and pay attention to where you're going. But the dream world and the internet are connected in the back door. Because when somebody makes a website, their dreams now reflect that website. This is just an expansion of music, because before the piano was invented, nobody was dreaming of concertos. But then the piano was invented, and then we have all these crazy composers coming up with very intricate pieces of music that are only available because of the invention of this technology. So I tend to use the moniker online ZXY, just so when people talk about Richie, they know if it's me or not. And ZXY would be Z as in depth, trying to see who's on the same plane of depth. Like, if you're in the shallow end, that's cool. We'll talk about topical stuff. But if you want to go super duper deep, there's a lot of fish down here and a lot of whales that have exciting stories to tell. The X would be where people are in the physical plane. I mean, do you still think that eating food product from your local fast food joint is the best path to enlightenment? I mean, some people are swearing by whole, organic, raw, vegan, farmers market, sustainable permaculture. Other people are saying that the food doesn't matter. It's as long as you pray over it. I'm not going to argue with people. I just want people to know what they believe, because as soon as you are standing firm in your beliefs, I can present my beliefs to you in integrity. But left to my own devices, I'm like a level 7 raw food vegan. I don't eat anything that casts a shadow. Like, I just kind of function on a different wavelength because I know if I eat clean, I vibrate at a higher frequency.
Uh-huh.
So that would be the why. That would be if you're on the ascending tip, if you're talking about the good stuff, or if you're on the descending tip and you always got to find something to chat shit about.
What does your life consist of mostly? Not, I feel like you probably don't have that many people to talk to crazy deep stuff about, or do you?
So I got a community of just under 40 people that I call the Imaginauts
Uh-huh.
and Imagination Astronauts. We got pretty heady conversations of different types, whether it's commenting on the future technology like Ring door cameras and everybody's cell phone having GPS tracking versus privacy rights versus
All right, so how do you feel about 5G then?
dang. So I'm healthily skeptical about it because I've been watching since 1G and then 2G and then 3G and then 4G and then 5G. And everybody's just trying to get to orgy. Like that's the furthest one away that everybody's focused on. But 3G in the phone would be a telephone that has data access. 4G would be data access that could be live streaming. And then 5G would be like a wireless tablet with no linkage. So if everybody who is of a certain physical class as far as abundance has a tablet that has Netflix that has no lag time at all, they're going to enter a different world because they never need to load for anything. And everybody who doesn't have that is going to be in a different world because they have that loading screen.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's less important the generation of the technology because straight up microwaving the planet is dumb. There are still people who think that the world is geometrically a different shape than it is. So,
So
to
you're
me,
not a flat earther.
right. To me, if it's mentionable, it's manageable because I'd rather say it's a toroidal field for an Earth. If we want to
That's the
debate
gift.
about it, like let's discuss different things. Why can't it be donut Earth?
Uh-huh.
In order to have a dialogue that's healthy, we need to talk about why someone insisting that the Earth is flat is not productive versus somebody discussing the potential that the Earth could be flat based on their experience and then being open to a new opinion if they have new information.
It's asking for a lot, man. That's
Word, man. I got it. I remember the first time I met a serious flat
Whoa,
earther.
buddy.
Right. Some flat earthers are like trying to get you to believe. And like I met one person who was really trying to get me to see it his way. And I was like, wow, that's just oppressive. But then a couple months later, I met somebody, right. Somebody mentioned flat earth. And I was like, okay. And I kind of like played the ball back and forth. And they're like, yeah, I don't really believe it too much, but I wanted to litmus test you and to see if you were going to treat me like I'm a crazy because I think that I think maybe there's Pleiadians. You know what I mean? I think maybe there's underground cultures. I think maybe there's unseen things. And we don't have like a common bullshit detector right now. So it used to be like, what political party are you? And then people could kind of filter. But now we're in such a multi-dimensional pattern that I don't think narrowing it down to binary structure is useful unless you speak binary. So to me, I'm trying to help everybody build their AI, and that's your autonomic intelligence. I want your body to know what's going on. After I had ayahuasca for the first time, my body changed in the sense that I could feel my immune system could fire faster. I was getting better intuitive senses. I'd like scrubbed out the insides. Now, pure coincidence and synchrodipity that I ended up in that experience to have that ceremony. But I had already had a different ceremony that did all the cleansing, so I didn't purge it all. It was actually very pleasant.
You do plant medicines regularly?
Whoop. I lost you. What was that?
Do you do plant medicines regularly?
Yeah.
Like Joe Rogan, have you ever done DMT? Would you ever do DMT?
Dang.
You
I
should
tried it a
do
couple
DMT.
times in Utah land. It was pretty crazy. I worked at a Shakespeare festival in Utah land as the audio engineer for a while. And there were some townies that had gotten access to some DMT. It was more of a plant spice. It wasn't as cleanly extracted. And like I straight had visions through my yoga mat. I worked with some of that and saw entities in the yoga mat that talked to me. And I swear that I talked to Quetzalcoatl and had a conversation and like said, hey, you got to keep doing your physical practice because you're carrying too much in your body. And I was like, what? And then I realized that I was just carrying too much density. I couldn't get to higher density thoughts because
Always that density, man.
right, it's the bowels, it's the ball, it's the demon inside. Like I had to get my body system to clean out. And as soon as I discovered Dr. Sebi and alkaline diet and clean eating, all of a sudden my brain opened up a bit. So I think plant medicines are important, but that's again, your plant medicine should be your food. You would want to have, you know,
For
like
sure.
chamomile tea, build a relationship with kratom or kava or blue lotus. Like all these plants can be your friends. What about yourself? What are your thoughts on plant medicines?
I used to be a lot more about it than I am now. I don't know. Honestly, I think what it is I've just picked up a lot of density, like you're saying. And I've been afraid of the heaviness of that space because I've been there multiple times, and I'm just like, can I just work out some of this before I go into that space so that I can enjoy my time while I'm there? You know what I mean? So
Right.
that's
For
kind of where
sure.
I'm at with when it comes to the heavy hitting plant medicines.
Right. And to me, it sounds like I'm not quite sure what teaching this is from, but I like the metaphor it's involved. Is you're looking for the front door. You know, there's this temple within the palace, and there are ways to take a side door or a back door if you make an agreement with the plant, or you have some like
Mhm.
combo toad, or you have some animal medicine. Like there
Mhm.
is ways in there. If you wear a giant brick of tourmaline around your neck for 6 years, you know, maybe you'll get into that place. But if you
Uh-huh.
do the inner work and you make it a point to develop a discipline of meditation and stillness, and you
Mhm.
identify that other people around you are you, like just another finger of you as like as a deity, as a godlike being, then you're using the front door to your kingdom rather than
Mhm.
needing to use like a side door or a back door.
Correct.
So
Correct.
the part about that I found is that when you're going through the front door practices, whether that's a daily puja, whether that's doing comedic yoga, whether that's whatever your focus is,
Mhm.
it's the regularity. It's doing that so many
Yeah.
times in a row that once you get to that liminal break point, like, cool, you're level 2. Now you actually get the power. But at level 1, it was just kind of a hokey dance.
Yeah, and it's you might know the word. I think it's a Buddhist, and there's a diagram for it where you go up forward and you go off to the right, you go back a little bit, but and then you go to the left and you go up and then down a little bit. I feel like I'm in one of those down a little bit. It's
Mm,
like three steps forward, one back, three forward, one back, and this last year has definitely not been one back. Just as far as my spiritual practice, 10 back. Like I don't meditate regularly. I don't
mm.
eat as healthy as I used to. I
Okay.
was vegan at one point, or at least like, and then it was only meat on the like once a week or some shit like that. But lately, it's just been like it's been
Dang.
chaos.
So I'll slash that open a little for you so you got some context. So Vega, the galaxy, star cluster, close to Venus,
Yeah, yeah,
Venusians.
yeah, yeah.
Cool. So that kind of structure, Vega is a great galaxy to visit for cleansing.
Uh
But the
huh.
reason that we're not connected to them is because their density is so high, they're closer to numinous light beings than physicality.
Uh huh.
Our spirit is constantly flirting the edges between physical creature and then ethereal or ethereal spirit. So I'd say, if at all possible, try to eat for the season. Because if you're
Which,
eating appropriate food for the season, then it's less of you're eating this or that, but more you're eating connected to what your body needs. Because I don't know anybody who's doing vegan healthy that it wasn't guided by a bunch of vegans who were already unhealthy and then learned to do it healthy.
yeah, I wasn't.
So, word. And if you're the only one in your immediate surrounding that's looking for that plant-based diet, maybe it's having that one day that's farmers market food, that one day that's vegetarian food, and going the slow roll about that. Because that might be the one day a week that your back doesn't hurt. That might be the one day a week that like all of a sudden you don't have bloating. And then that's a natural motivation for that change. Unfortunately, because we live in the Instagram Facebook life, we're always trying to get like the faster, the newest. We want it 10 minutes ago with free shipping kind of deal.
Yeah, I know. I know, and I've been at that point where I know how long it takes. Yeah, you go to the gym. You ever been in the gym, work
Oh
out a
yeah.
lot?
Oh yeah, for sure. For
Um,
sure. Lifting and cardio, totally.
Nice. You miss, say you're on it for a few months or a few years and you miss a good month and you just, you know how hard it was to get to where you were and you almost don't even want to start again because you know how
Mm-hmm.
hard it is to get that momentum. That's where I'm at. I just took like the past month
Hmm.
meditating, reading more. I finally have my garden going because I moved. So now I have more space so I can grow my
Nice.
own food. And it's like, all right, I'm catching a vibe finally as of these past like 30 days, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm there. I feel you. I hear you on everything loud and clear.
Word. I think it really it's looking at what you want yourself to be doing as a physical practice. And then
Uh-huh.
once you have that space, like whatever the daily walk around the block just to get the fresh air or doing the stretches, once you have that clear in your brain, turn around and look at yourself through time and
Mm,
say, in order to get there, I'd have to make this little change a day. I'd have to like at least
uh-huh.
step out and check the mail every day, if not walk around the block. I'd have to at least roll out the yoga mat, even if I don't do anything. I have to roll it out and look at it and then roll it back up. At least I rolled it out, kind of deal.
Yeah, I like that at least. I like
Mhm.
that. I don't think I've heard anyone say it in that way before. It's like, just at least you know what I mean. Like I said, it's momentum, dude. That's fucking it's momentum. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It'll work for
Mm-hmm.
you or it'll work against you.
It's that energy in motion. It's emotions, energy in motion. If you're directing your emotions in a productive way, you're going to be able to focus on where you want the results to turn. Like in basics, biohacking or biological hacking would be looking at your body system, noticing what your body system is doing, and then making choices about where you want to be rather than making choices about what you're informed as. So to make that simpler,
Yeah.
in a video game, right? You got a video game character, you're playing the video game, you got health, you got mana, whatever
Yeah.
items.
Yeah.
If your health is low, as the player, you're going to say, use a potion. So the health goes up. Okay. So in your body, if your body gets stressed, as a spirit, you need to say,
Oh.
have some tea. And so you'll tell the vessel, all right, I'm going to have some tea. And then your character's relaxation is going to go up just like a video game.
Uh-huh.
So the biohacking principle of that is if you're heated, go stand in the sun for a minute because the sun's hotter than you are.
Mm.
You know what I mean? If you
I'm
can't
thinking of my
focus,
son, you know?
if you can't focus, you got to find something that encourages focus. Maybe it's running water. Maybe it's like watch some animals because the animals are always focused.
Mm.
But it's using your consciousness of your biology to then make an appropriate choice. Does this kind of help at all?
That helped tremendously, and it led to a question. Someone wanted you to get deeper into biohacking. That was a perfect introduction. So do you have some other, like, I guess, what do you do? What's your sort of go-to day-to-day, something that's not too hard to do, you can handle in a couple minutes, and it keeps you on your game?
Okay. A lot of it's related to the plants that I'm consuming. I'll have like different kinds of plant-based coffee. Lemon water in the morning is a good hack if you just put some lemon juice inside some water because it'll alkalize your body. This is kind of a tricky one. It's considered a biohack. It's really interactive. So you're going to take your ears, okay? And you grab your ears and you pull your ears out this way. And with you pull your ears out this way, you're going to jut your jaw outward for 3 seconds. So 3 seconds out and then open your mouth. For 3 seconds open. Yep, it's going to burn. And then out. 1, 2, 3. And then open again. 1, 2, 3. And then out again. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you can stop. And then out again. 1, 2, 3. But what that does is it takes the tubes for your ears and it's releasing a bunch of fluids. So by doing that, you're electrically releasing stress from your brain because you're decompressing the energy that's there. So that's one of the few that'd be considered like Eastern medicine acupressure almost. There's a bunch of biohacking techniques and things that I found just because I think they work. So other people's biohacking could be having matcha tea or smoking some cannabis or doing whatever they believe brings them to a more appropriate state. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So you like the plants. I have that same thing. The question is, do you think plants more so reinforce the mind? Because people throw this at me on my channel all the time, and it's sort of almost like a meme at this point where it's all is mind, like all is mind, all is mind. And I think the person who said it clearest was Bashar. You follow Bashar?
Oh yeah, for sure. I followed Darren Anka for a long time.
Oh yeah. So I was listening to one of his things, and she said smoking. She was like, "Is smoking bad because you're saying it's all mine?" And he's like, "Well, do you believe smoking is bad?" And she's like, "Well, yeah." And he's like, "Well, there's your answer."
Right.
So do you believe that at some point, if you're so goddamn dialed into the mind that you can overcome smoking cigarettes? And I guess people do all the time. They live
Totally.
My grandpa lived to 100 and he smoked cigarettes since he was 12, some shit like that. You know?
Word, for sure. I think the word permission slips is the one that I want to use from that vernacular. But real quick on the tobacco tip. I started smoking tobacco when I was 17.
Mm-hmm.
I smoked tobacco, it was like 2004. I smoked tobacco until 2012. So Christmas Eve of 2012 was the last time that I smoked tobacco as a choice. I mean, I've had a couple blunts and then like, oh, wait, what? Is this tobacco wrap? No thanks. Like there's been incidental processing, but I was smoking pipe tobacco. More hours of a day than not. So lots of tobacco in my lungs. And I really enjoyed it, but I felt that there was a relationship building with tobacco. So I had an experience where I hallucinated a 3-story tall entity of tobacco that was loosely based on Datura. So I took a meditation somebody did with Datura to talk to the spirit, and I said, tobacco, come to me in the same way. And so on Christmas Eve of 2012, tobacco said to me very gently, like a grandparent spirit, said, well, you know Santa Claus has tobacco, right? And I had my tobacco pipe, and I'm like, wait, Santa Claus has tobacco? Fuck. And tobacco's like, yeah, because Santa Claus works so hard that we cooperate with Santa Claus, and that's what we're here for. And I was like, I'm not working as hard as Santa Claus. No, so immediately that was my completion of the karmic agreement in burning tobacco. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, when I see people breathing tobacco, I got to take a second because if I smell it, I can tell you Marb, Camel, I can tell you what kind of tobacco it is just because my body knows, but it's going to pump my adrenal glands and I'm going to get like bloodlusted for a minute. So I got to remember to take a breath and calm down and catch some camphor essential oils and do my own exercises to reduce my body state because I know that that stimulant plant isn't for me. The brown plant isn't for me right now. I have a productive relationship with the green plant at this time, which I expect to not be permanent. I expect all of these plant medicines to be medicines to get me where I need to go. And then when I no longer have the ailment, I will no longer need the remedy. Does that make sense?
You specifically asked them why they're in your life, what they're helping you for.
It's either me asking them if I don't know or me deciding if I already do know.
I see.
My current beat on life is that there's a lot of emotional stress that happens from the chemtrails that come from the back of our cars, because all of our cars are leaving a strategic little line of pollution. So we're breathing heavy minerals through the burning of these cars, and that gets into our lungs. So one of the things the green plant does is it helps create an artificial effect of happiness that can override some of the pain felt by that burning of metals or rocks, however you look at oil. I know a lot of people who displace their relationship with cannabis and have an abusive relationship with the plant. It's not for me to judge that. It is for me to be aware as a guardian that if there's somebody who thinks that they have to take 5 dabs before they can start their morning, that's probably not somebody I want to get too close to, because then I may end up having that same belief. It's not that it's bad. They're just resonating at a reality where they have a relationship that's with the plant as a main character rather than like Merlin, like a support character. The plant kind of shows up and does its thing and then leaves. It's the Archimedes of the conversation. You hear me?
What's that process look like for you then? Is it you said you sat down with Datura?
I've spoken with individuals who've had lots of different plant experiences. I got some explanation in neuro-linguistic programming as a kid, so I was able to build a really strong linguistic pattern. And I've spoken with a couple people who've had very powerful experiences with Datura. So Datura being a dissociative, the hallucinogen is you're hallucinating and you think you see an elephant. Wow, an elephant. Datura is a dissociative, so like you see and you like shit yourself because you saw an elephant. You're dissociating. You think the elephant's really there. So I personally haven't worked with Datura. It's a little stronger than I feel called to do, but I've worked with Combo, the frog poison. I've worked with ayahuasca. I've worked with the various usual suspects. So I think that there needs to be a healthier dialogue about what can be done with these, because for some people, it's like hape or cinnamon tea or kratom. And here's a bump for the kratom. You go to freeounceofkratom.com or you go to Brave Botanicals. And there's a guy named John who runs Brave Botanicals out of Texas. He QCs all the kratom. It's really awesome. They'll send you a free ounce so you can try it. It's unadulterated. And he has a great little webcomic that'll send with it too. Yeah, a lot of places in Asia will add heavy metals to it and then send it so it passes the weight. So you're getting like some kratom that's got like cut with something gnar. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Whack. And savage. Like mother. All right, someone's asking about porn addiction.
That's again the outside rather than the inside. Because if the idea is that you're looking towards the dream or you're looking towards a screen or you're looking towards something else to feel, you're emoting as the character on the screen is the feel. It's like people who have to smoke weed before they can play video games, or they have to have a beer before they can have dinner. They have to. It's that side door. It's that back door. If you really want to have true compassion, if you really want to get into Tantra, which would be the retention of your water, that's all Tantra would be, in my opinion, is advanced water bending. Because you know how much water is in your blood. You know how much water is in your saliva. You know how much water is in your reproductive fluids. That would be the awareness of your own water forces. And if you're staring at a screen and releasing your water kind of willy-nilly, it would be destructive in a way. So the art form, I think, I don't remember the exact French name, but the art form of pornography has to do with people understanding anatomy. And I think that there could be some artistic merit to that. But right now it's kind of a...
It's been perverted, pardon the pun.
Totally. It's a quick it's a quick fix with no release. Because a bunch of people think they can get their fulfillment by looking at their favorite OnlyFans account, but then there's no genuine release. There's no genuine relationship. So it's kind of reinforcing a loneliness. You hear what I'm pointing at? Fair.
It's another false god, Akjari Drogon. Another false god. Was there something more specifically that you were pandering to, Akjari, than just porn in general? Otherwise, I'm starting to browse the comments because I forgot. People usually have some good fire questions on here.
Dang, no worries.
Someone was associating, Santa's not. Oh, well, some people do say Satan is Santa, but they also say Santa is a mushroom. So
Word, for sure. And if you would dive even deeper into the terms, Satan would be the Jewish word for chaos. And so anybody who's experienced with chaos would be arguably working in the spirit of that force. If you're creating if you're creating organization, you're angelic. So your actions as man of letters to create this channel, to create this dialogue, is seen as an angelic action.
What
If you word for sure, you're definitely showing off on the higher planes, and it's more showing up rather than like showboating, because you're being present, and therefore other people can come to your light, and then at no cost they can get their light lit from your light and move forward. However, if you were logging on and like, oh my gosh, we all got to buy emergency food and everything's going bad, rah, 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 like the InfoWars style, that would be the negative magnetism. So that would be trying to attack people's fear sensors rather than their bravery sensors. You follow me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Word.
Was that going somewhere, or was we waiting for that other question? I lost my spot. I'm trying to keep up with you. This guy, you rapid fire, man. I like it. I love having conversations with people like you.
For sure. I've watched a bunch of episodes and I enjoy the pace that you go at. So I figure whatever comes up, and I'm totally down to jam. So
yeah, there's been a couple jams I keep meaning to write them down, and if I write shit down, I lose track of what you're saying, but then I forget what I'm gonna. It's like, oh god, like a skill, man, to be able to like.
Yeah, it's hyper-threading for sure.
I had Sebi written down, so
Word.
There's been a lot of back and forth on Sebi, man. Have you found personally been following religiously his OG followings and found it to your liking? Because I know that he's received some criticism from people who I respect. Okay. I have respected, so I'm definitely like.
For sure. Was it after the documentary that came out?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I know the most recent one was as of like in the past 48 hours. That's why it stopped me when you had brought him up. I was like, oh yeah, someone just gave me heat on one of my comments, like how he's.
Okay.
Just reminded me of some other stuff that people had said.
So there's a lot of discussion about Dr. Sebi and the mucusless diet. So that's kind of his drive. He has it marketed as the alkaline diet or the mucusless diet. And what it is it's coming from a highly melanated population. As far as I understand, he's from South Africa. So he's talking about how eating wheat and how eating cheese cause mucus in the body. And mucus is to be avoided. Now, he's saying that eating some animals, some fish, some little bits of those things is healthy for your body's mineral content. But really, you want to be eating a lot of heavy greens all the time. Now, there's a really powerful population of Kemetic mystics and individuals who are driving really heavy in the melanin communities. I don't really have too much permission to be there because of the color of my container, but what that doesn't exclude me from is the ancient teachings. If I actually read the books that they read and get into the knowledge they have, I might not be on the lives with them trying to get Cash App screams, but I am trying to do the research and finding out when people are eating a diet that is of high vibration and of high resonance, how is this biologically affecting their body? A lot of individuals are overloaded with plaque. They've got sinus plaque, like mucoid plaque, they've got dental plaque, and then they have fecal plaque. And the fecal plaque is going to be a chunk of a hamburger that you had 3 years ago that's stuck somewhere in the mile of intestines inside of your body. So if you're doing some basic alkaline cleanse, like mixing some green drink every morning, after a week, that's going to naturally pass because you're strategically reoxygenating your body to let it go. But if you're like drinking 1 apple cider vinegar a month and thinking you're good, that might not be the way to do it. Like, it's a good step, don't get me wrong, but I think that's a lot of the Sebi fanboys and fangirls, are just saying, eat this part, but not do a whole deep dive on this topic. Now, I know there's a lot of discussion about the sociological and interpersonal things, like connected to different political movements and that.
Yeah.
I'm not even pushing for that. To me, the mystical information and the health information are the same. It has to work 90% of the time. 10% of the time I can mess it up. Like if somebody gives me a cool meditation or holotropic breathing or cathar activation, like I'll give it a go. But if it doesn't work 90% of the time, I think it's a hokey system. So that's my stance on the whole Sebi thing. I think anybody who has beef, bring forward what you have beef about and we'll talk about it. But since he promoted vegan, I don't really feel it's going to be there. So rewinding a little bit to the kratom topic, I know there's a lot of people who are concerned about kratom being of low quality or having FDA issues or even being like an opiate addiction. And I think that has to do with how people get along with the plants, because a lot of people have coffee all the time and they have a negative relationship with coffee. But kratom is like halfway between coffee and chocolate. So if you can balance your chocolate and you can go ahead.
Yeah, what's what I'm looking for? Consistently in between chocolate and coffee?
Yes, the alkaloid is like the center of them, and it's the same parts of the brain that fire on Percocet and oxycodone and Vicodin.
No shit.
No shit. So that's why the pharmaceutical complex trying to block it, and they say no kratom, no kratom. But if you go to Indonesia, The plaques on the walls in their government building have kratom leaves. Like, it's part of their culture. So you can check out a show called Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia, and he has a whole episode all about kratom. It's amazing. He goes dive into it, and yeah,
Hamilton's
Pharmacopoeia.
Pharmacopoeia.
Mhm,
Cool,
mhm.
thanks for that. Because I see copium everywhere. You know what I mean? Just because the things we research, but I've just never. I don't. Maybe because it's not illegal, or it's like, oh, it's legal. It must like not be a big deal.
For sure, for sure. If you get into it, I'd recommend to just get some green powder. Again, freeounceofkratom.com or through Brave Botanicals is the guy, John, who distributes a lot of it. I'm about his network. He's all about kind of the anarchist movement and making sure people are governing themselves. Start with a teaspoon, like a teaspoon in warm water, and sip it a little bit like your first cup of coffee. And if it gets you hyphy, slow down. And if you don't feel it, just leave it. The issue is we got people taking tablespoons or like shovelfuls and trying to drink a bunch of it to get totally twacked. And they're just vomiting and getting sick, but it's like a dry vomit that doesn't hurt you. Because it's like, what happens if you eat 6 pounds of chocolate? Well, you're going to have a stomach ache and then you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
So I accidentally gave my kratom hookup because I got a friend who sells kratom in Indonesia, and he'll sell it to me at like standing price is $1 a gram. I can get it for 1 cent a gram
Wow.
because I'm getting it wholesale from Asia. But I
Plus-
accidentally shared that hook with one of my friends, and the next time I saw him, he was eating an ounce a day. And his
Oh.
skin was turning green, and he wasn't eating any food, and he thought everything was fine because he was totally high on kratom. But I was like, no, I already know you had opiate problems. I already know that you've been through AA. I already know this was the bad choice
Yeah.
of me. I could have been like, let's have some tea, and then slowly introduced him to it. So that was my bad. But
So it is a plant that you have to treat with respect, is what you're getting at.
can you name one plant that you don't have to treat with respect?
Fair.
But yes, absolutely. I'd say that it's a little bit more sensitive. Like kava is a little forgiving. If you have too much kava, you'll just kind of numb out.
Uh-huh.
But if you have too much belladonna, that's no good.
Yeah, definitely. Well said. Every plant you should respect. I didn't realize kratom was like that. Like I'm getting friggin' emails all the time. 25% off our kratom. I'm like, everyone's slanging kratom. Like, what the hell's up with this plant, man? You know?
Well, the powder that's being consumed is the leaves. So you take the leaves and you grind them into a fine powder. And then ideally, I say you mix it with the warm water and you sip it with the warm water, and it can help stabilize a lot of good things in the body. Some people have it with juice, but it's going to lower your body temperature a little bit. So
Interesting. So about microdosing.
absolutely everything should be microed. And then when you get to know it, then you could step up. But the problem is we got kids trying to eat a 10 strip on their first party, and it's like, no, 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 no.
See, and regardless of what we are talking about, ladies and gents, be micro. Well said. Well said.
I mean, even if you go to the restaurant, you try a new dish, like try a small bite. You don't gotta like try a new dish and like cut a giant bite and stick the whole thing in. Because what if you don't like the flavor? Like,
Even for the sake of experiencing something, you can't just be overwhelmed. You gotta find the intricacies of things. Small portions. I like it though. I had a question for it. Oh yeah, this is super out of left field. I know what made me think of it, but do you have any off the wall practices, like some straight up training to be a Jedi? I think that was a goal of mine at some point in my life. Or anything that's sort of kind of self-made, or that someone doesn't talk about, any hidden gems of practices that you do, you know what I mean?
totally, for sure. I think one of the biggest things I found about learning secret stuff is that before they teach you secret stuff, they say, this is the secret stuff, don't share it. And I've totally shared almost all the secret stuff. And some of it I've like genuinely gotten in trouble for. Like the universe is like, you should not have taught people that. And like I
nice.
have to deal with it. Other times I can
Great,
repeat
that one.
things.
Can you teach us that one?
Word. See, I've adapted those ones. I found a way to take the keys out of that one so I don't get hit, and then subbed in new locks. So I'm just trying to create a better puzzle.
Ooh.
Right. So
Better
the simple
divert
one,
that karma somewhere. You would have found
Right.
a plant.
it's all about boats and locks. Got to like remove the water and keep everything balancing. So with your eyeballs, you're looking forward. This is like I got 2 ninja tricks I'll throw, but this is the first one. With your eyeballs looking forward, you want to take your eyes and you want to look up. Just bring your eyes and look up. You're going to focus up and you're going to feel a little bit of stress in your forehead, prefrontal cortex.
Mhm.
When you're doing that, your brain can't think about small talk shit. Right. So when you're doing that, and you can gently close your eyes a little bit so it's more comfortable, but by doing that, you're actually decompressing and defragmenting part of your memory banks.
No
So
shit.
if somebody says something to you or an emotional response happens, just stop, find somewhere, close your eyes a little bit, look up, and do that for about 30 seconds. And biologically, your brain's going to start to release the blood and be like, why am I looking up? Why can't I see anything? And it's going to stress itself out naturally. That's going to coincidentally decompress the narrative that's giving you stressed,
Yeah.
because the narrative is the illusion, but the stress is real. So when you
Yeah.
notice the stress, you have to short circuit the stress response rather than trying to short circuit the illusion, because that's like fighting the Inception game, right? Biohacking, biological hacking. That's the objective.
Is that why you see people in movies where they like look up, they're just like, and like,
Yeah, I think that'd be what they're going towards. I mean, movies, it's tricky to say because they're all actors on a screen. But I know if you look at somebody who's remembering something, if you ask one of your elders, hey, what color was your first car? They're going to go, and they're going to reach into their memory banks to try to pull it.
uh-huh.
So in my mind, that's just like sweeping up your memory banks and like checking the Dewey Decimal System card so that your books are in the right place.
Mm.
So be on the eyes up. The other hack that I'd throw down is for your toes. When you're talking to somebody, and if they like go off on a tangent, you can pick up a toe. Just pick up your big toe and let them go on their tangent and let them talk about whatever they want. And when they're done, then you put your toe down and then you can continue going in the direction you're going. Or if you're talking to somebody and they're unruly and they're just like, they got to make a point, they got to make a point, you can just lean on your pinky toe a little bit and just hold that pinky toe on the ground and they'll talk at you and you'll dig deeper roots into the earth. And then when they're done, you can pick up your toe and all that is passed through you.
I'll
Because,
try that.
right, they weren't talking to you, they were talking to the illusion.
Yeah.
They're facing you and you're reflecting themselves to them. Do you follow me?
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
I think that like, are you talking to me right now? Or are you like, who are you talking? I
Right.
do that
And
with my finger to keep
yes,
place, but I still forget. Like I'm like, oh,
yep,
I'm gonna put my finger down.
for sure. Toes are another one. I
I
found you
like the
can also
toe.
like bend, if you can curl your tongue up and backwards, that's a really good one.
Oh,
So
that's
you put your
good.
tongue to the roof of your mouth.
Yeah.
That gives you electricity because the bottom of your tongue is a higher voltage than the top of your tongue. So by putting the bottom of your tongue on the roof of your mouth, the route from your brain to your heart is amplified.
To me, it seems like you're almost finding a way to put yourself outside of the scenario. Like it's just a trick to sort of step out of the situation to where you can kind of third person and get a better bird's eye view. Like, okay, like you're saying, I'm not
Right.
so involved in the
Mhm.
lashing that I'm getting right now. I can say, okay, he's doing his thing, I'm doing my thing. Like, all right, I can just kind of not be too emotionally involved and then come in when you need to with a clear head.
And I'd say it's maybe stepping off the dance floor and then kind of getting your bearings back and then jumping
Ooh.
back in.
Yeah.
Because there's
Double
a
down.
lot of times when you're going, like the DJ will change it, like you lost your groove, or like you'll dance with somebody, or something will happen, somebody drops something, and like the vibe's kind of off. It takes a specific level of maturity
Uh-huh.
to step out of the dance floor, to step out of the combat zone, if you want to call it that, and to let everything kind of calm. But I found that as much as I like to go into a place where there's a dance floor and bust a move and bust a move and bust a move until the party's over, that's not always the best thing.
Definitely
Sometimes
done
it's
that. No,
right. It's
I've
fun,
definitely
man.
busted a move till the end.
I think it's great. I found that if I take a couple breaks, I kind of give the stage back and I'll find the other locals who want to bust a move. And then I can bust a move alongside people rather than just like, here's my spaceship. I'm gone. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be some like, let's collaborate. Stop,
Yeah,
collaborate, and listen kind of thing. So
collaborate and yeah, nice throwback. Nice throwback. Do you mind if I browse these comments real quick and see if
rock on for sure. No worries.
um, someone's acting about acacia? Let's see if we can get off the plant topic for a second.
Dang. Oh man, the acacia stuff's insane.
All right. Well, just kidding. We're back on the plant shit. Hit it with the acacia. I know there's a ton of acacia. I feel like every time I'm like, this is the acacia jagonia of the Sering. I'm like, how many fucking acacias are everywhere, man?
Dang, fair. I think I'll connect the animals and the plants real quick, but I know of two animals that would natively eat acacia berries, and therefore they would be bringing the DMT from the high treetops down to the bottom. So that'd be the elephants,
Uh-huh.
because the elephants have the snout and they'd go up and they'd grab the berry and they go, and they'd spit it out. And then now you have acacia berries on the ground that can either ferment and they can change, or they can be eaten from the elephants passing. But you also have giraffes. Giraffes that are walking around and just eating whatever they find, and they find acacia berries, and then now there's acacias on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing as the burning bush is related to an acacia tea, there's a lot
Yeah.
of contexts about different hallucinatory experiences. As much as the plant medicines are valid, that's the outside. On the inside, that's the front door. The front door is going inside. If you have to go outside through a plant or a drum ceremony or a sweat lodge, all of these would be side door or back door cues. So unfortunately, I think a lot of people don't trust themselves enough to be able to go through the front door. They think that they have to use the side door or the back door.
Agreed. Agreed. Wholeheartedly. That was a conversation I had with the shaman, a plant medicine man, who's actually hosting ceremony monthly at land that I own here in Santa Barbara County. And one of the main things I asked him was like, look, it's healing, but it's almost sometimes I'll be in that culture and with the people who it's their weekly or monthly practice, and it's like it's almost like they're chasing the dragon. You know what I mean? It's like they've said a ton of times, like, "Oh, it's medicine. You see, we need medicine. We need healing." And it's like, whoa, like, are we that damaged to where I guess it's. I hear I always need to be healed. I also hear I'm always sick, and it's like I want to be overly facetious and like ironic about it, but at the same time, it's like you hear it so often. It's like, whoa, it just feels unnatural, I guess, is what I'm getting at, and it
Yes.
can, like, if you pick them
Absolutely.
up, what I'm putting down.
Totally. And I think that the loss would be in the ceremony of the medicine.
Yeah.
I mean, I would hone into my ayahuasca experience. I had a huge life-changing experience and a bunch of shit in my mind changed.
As
But
me too. Same.
I've talked with a couple people who've had similar ones and like they didn't really get that memo.
Mm-hmm.
They're either still doing the same choices or still up against the same wall, and maybe they didn't have enough medicine, maybe they weren't ready to heal, or maybe the healing has nothing to do with the plant and it has all to do with them.
Mm.
And so, in my mind, again, just taking it back to the Esasani mind, it's the permission slips. Every belief is a permission slip.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
if you need a new permission slip, maybe eating some moldy wheat germ or something that's going to give you like the permission slip that you can decide what you want to do. Whereas other people need the permission slip of a very traumatic event happening to them or their loved one, and that's the thing that'll catalyze the change.
Well
All
said.
of it would be about your inner space, and the outer space would be a reflection of your inner space.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference would be you can impact your inner space, and no matter how much you affect the outer space, you're still looking at it through your own three eyes. So,
Yeah, that was beautifully said, man. I liked all of that. It all resonated. I hope this is helpful for you guys because it's definitely answered some questions. Because I love plant medicine, especially when I first came across it in my mid-20s. It was just like couldn't get enough. Every experience was more grand and more beautiful than the previous. I learned more and more, and then I just hit a point where I was chilling for a while. I wasn't really called to do it. I was more in my meditation and my walks and my yoga and my kundalini practices. I was just slamming the actual like physical practices,
right.
And so yeah, I love plant medicine. Don't get me wrong. It's just now I'm getting back into it because they're running these ceremonies every month, and they're like, I almost have to go because I'm there hosting. Almost like I don't want to. Like no, like I just did it. I don't want to dive in there again.
Word. Part of that will actually be you stepping into the guardianship form. Because I think there's a real strong relationship, what you were mentioning, like the patients or people who are sick and people who need the medicine and need the healing. Well, there'd be an impetus, arguably, that once you have the medicine and you've healed, that you could be the bodhisattva and you could still show up to the party and help people get the healing. You could kind of be the trip sitter. You could be the guardian, the person who's not necessarily in the fray of it, but still there.
Yeah.
We have some super old school, like grandparent energies that are kind of like flower children or like old school rainbows that kind of keep it woke in the world. The problem is we're running so fast that even woke is a joke. Like it's
Yeah.
all about your health. Your health is your wealth. If you're a healthy person, you could still think that the world is geometrically a cube and like you can be forgiven for that because you're making good choices. But if you're eating, McDonald's, Burger King, and, Beyond Meat 10 times a day, and that's your regular meals, maybe getting into the Kaibalion would be a huge leap for you because these are a bunch of new things. And like, who are the three initiates? What are they talking about? Why don't they have names like Tom, Dick, and Harry? So being able to free yourself would be changing your, arguably the lies you tell yourself, like your beliefs, your beliefs, what it is that you're insisting is true, because we're synthesizing all of our narrative into our world. So when you wake up, you believe that your name is your name. You believe that your arms are your arms, and you believe that your channel is your channel. It could be that your name is the sound that your parents gave you. Your arms are the things that belong to the planet, but you can manipulate. And your channel is like your multidimensional landing pad, which you're just making clearer and clearer for your spirit so that every day you can become more and more your full self.
This is a big question.
Run it. You're good, man.
How you just said your arms are not yours, and this it's sidetracking me on something.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
So the arms are something that belong to the earth.
Right.
Do you see the earth as its own, as its thing, or would you say the earth just belongs to the solar system and the solar system belongs to the galaxy? Like, do we all just belong to each other? And at what point, when can I claim something as mine if we all just belong to sort of our predecessor, if that makes sense?
For sure. I hear you. And that's timeless spacelessness. The perspective you're speaking from has a timelessness and a spacelessness.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the realm where there is no time and there is no space, we are all the same thing. So
Is
to give that same thing a name, you could call it the biota. And the biota would be Earth and everything on it as one organism.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like an ant farm or an anthill would be all those ants together as one unit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, throughout time, you've got different kinds of experiences being had. So your great grandparents, they're still kind of you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the great great grandchildren that even see a picture of you or see something you built or even talk to somebody who ate some food that you grew, they're connected to you.
Mm-hmm.
So the relationship of your fingers would be the fingers are different parts of the hand, and each of us right now would be a different dreamer in this dream. I believe when we all lay down and go to sleep, when we click into that dream space, we join like a larger piece. We join an oversoul.
Every time, or do you think it's can it be our own private sometimes,
I
or is
think
it always the same space? What do you think?
it's as though this body is an online account,
Uh-huh.
and when we lay down and go to sleep, we're logging out into the next level of server. So you could log out into a totally exclusive elite server that's just you and your lineage, totally. Like
Your
it's
own
just
private
you,
server.
but you and the other avatars and nobody else.
Uh-huh.
Or it could be you and your grandparents and ancestors, some of which may be living a life in a different timeline that's vastly different than yours.
Uh-huh.
But you still get to get along with this farmer from Vietnam because they're still sharing your oversoul.
Damn.
I think this is reflected in the sense that if you make a painting, you don't have to show anybody that painting, but you're going to feel like a different person from making the painting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that each of us is a painting from whatever is above us. And so we are like the secret art projects of God, arguably. You hear where I'm coming from?
Yeah. Would you say that that's different than your shadows on the inside of the cave wall? I mean, the shadows are a type of painting in themselves, are they not?
Right, for sure. And the cave would be the mind within the mind.
Uh-huh.
Because we have the brain that's in our body, but then you can, like this is called the balcony technique, you can imagine what it looks like from behind you. If
Uh-huh.
you imagine what it's like to look at you from behind you, like imagine you're in third person mode,
Uh-huh.
you're doing a mental projection, that's short range astral projection, because you're just imagining the room around you.
Uh-huh.
And it's not really remote viewing because you're holding this time. You're not, you could imagine this room an hour ago. That would be more remote viewing because you're adding time dilation. Or you could imagine this room in an hour.
Uh-huh.
But all that's within the, this is Imaginaut exercise. This is all
Yeah.
stuff inside of your brain, like how you want to scrub. So the useful part would be decide who you want to be as clearly as you can,
Mm-hmm.
step into that form, and then turn around and look backwards at yourself and look at the path that you got to get there, because it'll be extremely clear.
That's a serious mental exercise.
Fair? I mean,
For your
it can-
average person, even for me, I'm like, all right, again, I'm like forward, but looking back, but seeing the path along the way. It's crazy.
For sure, for sure. I mean, a simple one to get those motors firing is if you imagine a time or remember a time when you like stubbed your toe. Like you stubbed your toe, like you bumped into the door frame. Some small event that you remember and you're like, it's kind of annoying. All right. So if you got that, you want to find the starting frame of it. Like find where that event starts. It could be like the moment before impact. It could be impact. Find where that starts. Okay. And when you got it, you want to hit play in the movie of your mind and just play it till it's in. Should only be maybe a second or two. Like, ow, son of a glitch. You know, whatever. That experience. Okay, now rewind back to the beginning. And now play it in black and white. Okay, now rewind to the beginning again. And now play it from a different angle in the room in black and white.
Cool.
Right. And so now you're recoding your brain because you're reinforcing new memories on top of this old memory. So the last one is to play it in black and white with circus music. Dot, dot. Right. So now every time you remember stubbing your toe or whatever the memory is, you've encoded a positive memory on top of the bad memory.
Oh shit.
Right. So we're using your brain's programming architecture for its benefit. That'd be another form of this kind of biohacking principle.
That's incredible. That's super cool.
Word, for sure. Doing private sessions with this kind of stuff all the time. And I think that we're responsible for our language.
Yeah,
So
that
hopefully
was.
this
I
is
like that a
useful.
lot.
Good, good, good.
I'm gonna have to set up a private session with you and learn some shit.
Easy squeezy, man. No worries. Happy to.
That's dope. Um, some people have been asking about biohacking periodically. That was it, you guys. That was probably at least for me, the coolest thing that would be the most practically applied. You know, because I was just talking about it earlier today. How I would argue the densest thing we have that we carry are our resentments and shit that we can't let go, and like not forgiving people or ourselves of things. It's got to be the heaviest thing that we carry, you know. And it's just like if you could rechange how you see it by something as simple as like black and white and circus music. I even threw like a hat on myself when I picture like, oh, I even have a red nose and a hat on top of it. You know what I mean? It's like
For sure.
clown,
For
watch
sure.
where you're going.
Dang. All right. So while you're there, if you still got that frame in your brain, give it a
Yeah.
proscenium. Give that screen in your mind a proscenium. Give it a frame. Give it like curtains. Make it like a movie theater house and create this container. And when you're done, close the curtain. And when the curtain's closed, let it rest in your mind. And then the next time you want to recode anything, just bring back the movie theater and then open up the curtains. And now you can do regressions. So you can grab other people's technology and you could regress back into last week. I got some food from the grocery store and the cash register was really difficult for me to interact with those self-checkout things. So I kind of lost my cool. Well, I can regress back there and see that everybody was losing their cool because those self-checkout things are annoying as hell. So maybe the thing I need to do is when I'm there again, remember that we're all stressed out by the robots. And then I could go really slow and like turn the volume down so it's not yelling at me and like bleep the stuff that I want in the order that I want. So even if I take a little bit more time, I don't have to yell at the machine, or it doesn't have to be like, put the eggs in the bag, keep the eggs out the bag, put the eggs in the bag. Like we all have,
back.
don't bag this item. Screw that. Like I hear you for sure, for sure.
Stealing these slippers. I'm blaming you. I'm blaming you, Walmart.
It's that dialogue. What we're doing right now, it's the discussion, because if you can mention it, you can manage it. But if you don't talk about it, you've got no hope of it. Like it can't be discussed and therefore solved.
You got to acknowledge it. I hype that a lot too. You got to at least acknowledge it, you know, whatever it is that the shit is.
I think there's also something to be said for the word knowledge, like know the ledge. You have to be aware of where your knowledge stops. So information would become knowledge when you add experience. But if you just have the information and no experience, is it really knowledge?
I would argue that you don't even believe the information. I don't really be like, I'll want to believe the information, but until I can kind of plug in that experience, I'm always like,
For sure.
sometimes, even to a fault, sometimes, like, you know.
So there's this awesome documentary that I think you should check out, and I advertise it to all your audience as well. It's called Sensitive. So you can find it at sensitivemovie.com. It's a movie about people who are highly sensitive, and it also has Alanis Morissette making some appearances in it.
Oh my goodness, I don't know how I feel about that, but I'll watch it anyways.
Okay, for sure, for sure. Sensitive's foundation says that 10% of the population should be sensitive. You want people who are sensitive so that they can be the barometer for the rest of the civilization. So if you don't have people who are like sensitive to scary movies or something like that, then all of your media could turn into Saw and horror movie thriller films, and then that could vicariously affect your culture. Because they found in Aboriginal tribes, if you teach the children to hunt under the age of like 10, they're going to usurp the elders before they're old enough. So you have to stall the hunting lessons until they're at a certain level of puberty if you expect them to respect their grandparents.
Interesting.
We got kids playing GTA 5 now, so like
That was the first thing I thought was like,
what blows my mind about that example specifically is in GTA 5, you have an in-game cell phone, you have in-game email, there's there's like in-game tasks. So if somebody can handle Grand Theft Auto, that same person can actually handle trading Bitcoin on the internet.
yeah.
They're really not that far away. So it could be that we need to educate children how to make good financial choices by playing web games that are built on blockchain applications rather than getting them on online components where they're just hearing people shout into a microphone with no real objective.
Other than killing somebody.
Right, using the E bullet to cause the E pain to the E opponent. Right, for sure, for sure.
That was actually well said. Damn, I was gonna think of something substantial because I just opened up a whole bunch of auxiliary doors where I was like, whoa, light bulbs.
Word, for sure.
I'm working with a friend of mine. We haven't started yet, but that's exactly what I want to do with some apps that I want to start. Is like the one I have in mind is with plants, and you sort of it's like a plant RPG where you have to grow a plant organically, and so like, oh, this is what the soil pH is, and you added this many minerals and it threw your pH off, so now it's not going to absorb calcium because of this.
Right.
So
Mhm.
and you donate to fucking planting a tree in the real world, and you learn shit along the way, and you all, it's like I want to do shit like that. That's where you're actually learning something along the way,
Right. Totally. And I think that's the line between infotainment or edutainment, where it's
Yeah,
educational or informational, and then also, as mentioned, it's gamification.
yeah. So
So
well
I
said,
think
Carlos.
I think if you wanted to make that application quickly, I'd recommend that you look in the microtransactions of something like Ethereum. And so you'd make a game that says you plant a seed and then over time the seed grows. And then if you want to have a microtransaction of like 0.001 token, that would be you getting the nitrogen so that you can add the nitrogen to the soil to change the statistics of the soil.
Mm-hmm.
The game that you're talking about is really a spreadsheet. All it is a spreadsheet with all those facts, and then a programmer takes those spreadsheets and feed it into a time responder, basically something that's making a timetable happen so the plants will grow.
Damn. And if I came across Ethereum recently, actually, I was trying to order
Word.
spores online, and they are suggesting me to use
For sure.
Ethereum.
If you want to get into crypto, I'm going to send you a link to MCO because MCO is a cool online platform and they'll give you a card. So I straight up bought a slice of pizza earlier today using cryptocurrency because you can use that card wherever you can use any kind of Visa or MasterCard. And with MCO, they'll give us both $50 if you use the promo link I have. So yeah,
Sold. This video is not sponsored.
dang. This video is sponsored by creative individuals who are making their own way. And yeah, mad respect for the Etsy store, by the way. I know a lot of people who have the will to, like, I want to distribute some sage, I want to make some tinctures, I want to make some decoctions, I want to make some bracelets, but then they never have the want to make the Etsy and to get the order and then to fulfill the order and to go to the post office and to ship it. So got
It's
mad respect for that.
thanks, man. Yeah, thanks. I'm trying to streamline it a little more, but it's been fun. I like creating shit. I don't mind it too much when it's at the end of the day. There's something I was gonna ask you that was super sidetracked. Can I sidetrack the hell out of you?
100%. Take the ball.
We were okay. I'll make it applicable. You were mentioning different dimensions of existence, lower plane, tethered to a material. Oh, that's right, tethered to a material plane and Earthlings, whereas some other, like I think the Vegans are
Yeah,
higher.
you're talking about, yeah, for sure.
I don't know why I always think about this. I think because I just want to join the Avatar world so bad. If you saw a species like the movie Avatar and they're sort of tapped into the planet, they're literally plugged into the animals and plants and shit like that. Would you see that as a third dimensional existence? Or because I'm not sure what people mean when they say they're fourth dimensional. Does that mean they're walking on a planet? Or are they like a hive mind all of a sudden and they have a very loose ego where it's, because I'm like, I guess where I'm coming from is it would be cool to experience something like Pandora in the infiniteness of the universe, but they're also a physical race. So does that mean if you're on the third dimension, you're doomed is what I'm getting at? Is there no cool life forms in the third dimension that have it figured out that aren't a hive mind and can exist as, a more solidified thing?
I think it would be more related specifically to how that entity or consciousness experiences time. Because when I hear
Why so?
somebody, when somebody talks about the fourth dimension, to me, the fourth dimension is time is no longer linear like wind. It's non-linear like water. So if you have a fourth dimensional aspect, you can go back to yesterday and you can think about yesterday and decide how you felt yesterday today. And so you can reprogram what yesterday meant for you today. But some people believe yesterday's yesterday, and there's no way that you can change what yesterday is. So from empirical experience, you know that that's a lie because you just had an experience of black and white and circus music, which showed you that you're responding on a fourth dimensional scale because you can rewind in your brain, look at time and go forward.
So you're
I'm
saying
gonna
that's a fourth dimensional act.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fourth dimensional presence, and then the action would be in the fourth dimension. I'm going to argue that birds and fish and dogs, they can't do that. Maybe they can, and I'm misinformed, and I could be, but I'm going to say that these animals can't cognize enough of an egoic structure to imagine what happened yesterday clearly enough to redefine or redesign what that meant to them. So the leverage would be if somebody believes that they had a powerful experience and it drove them to badness,
Mm-hmm.
rather than they had a powerful experience, and even if it hurt them at the time, remembering it now inspires them to become stronger,
Mm-hmm.
because that's using the fourth dimension as your compatriot. It's seeing time as a cooperative force for your narrative.
I
And if
see.
somebody thinks St. Bernard barked at me, so I'm forever afraid of dogs, they're a victim to an event that happened in the fourth dimensional timeline, rather than seeing that maybe they were small and the dog was big and they needed that way to stay in check. Otherwise, they could have grown up to be a bully.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody claims to have, actually, most of the time, when somebody claims to have something, I immediately believe they don't have it. Because the people who really have don't need to say that they have it. They
Yeah.
already have it. They don't need to be like, I am enlightened. Like, man, that's the first red flag, in my opinion.
No, I feel you. Preaching to the choir on that one. So what would you consider fifth dimension then? Like, using, I know it's Hollywood, but grant me
Right.
some leeway here. What would you see that species as that acted, that lived the sort of life that they live and the connection that they had to the planet?
For sure, I got it. And to get there, I want to go back to one real quick.
No. Tell me
real
about
fast.
the avatar. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
We'll get there. We'll get there. And I think this is related. I caught a little bit of your broadcast in the morning as well. And it's talking about like the rocks having a different consciousness than the plants.
Correct.
Word, for sure. So the stone, and we're talking labyrinths now. The labyrinth logic says that there's 5 dimensions of consciousness.
Uh-huh.
So arguably there's 6. The zero dimension, like that's one of my specialties. I do a form of coaching of Nigong, which is like the inner emptiness. And I focus on the void a lot. So, oh, I'm losing battery. I got to plug this in.
Yeah. So I had to do the same. Should have reminded me.
Okay, so first dimensional consciousness would be the rocks. The crystals, the stones, the minerals. Amethyst is a favorite. Quartz is a favorite. Ruby is a favorite. Silicon is a favorite. Carbonation for sure. We're all
Huh?
carbonated.
Yeah.
The dimensional consciousness inside of stones is also what prescriptions and pharmaceuticals are about. If you take a prescription drug, you're doing that. It's a tiny rock that's going into your brain or into your body system and changing how your neural hormones work. That's how Adderall works. That's how ibuprofen works. All that kind of stuff is tiny stones. The next one from plants or from stones would be plants. So plant consciousness is mint, spearmint, oregano, turmeric, sage, saffron, any of the exotic blends of plants.
Would you consider the entheogens a higher class?
So
Would you put them on a higher scale because of their influence with humans, or is it just not necessarily?
I think those would be the exotic examples of that dimension. So what a quartz point is to stones
Okay.
is the same as what salvia would be to plants.
I feel
Like
you.
they're just like different expressions of that consciousness. Now the halfway point would be plants into animals, because halfway there is where fungus exists.
Hmm.
Because the fungus mycelium would be breathing oxygen and exhaling carbon dioxide, which plants don't do that. Plants breathe in and breathe out other way. So the mushroom's kind of an animal. But then the animal consciousness, you have got flocks of birds and schools of fish and, a pride of lions. And you've got a bunch of animals that are expressing this tuned inness. So in my mind, that's their oversoul talking. Their oversoul's networked. So whether they're awake or asleep, whether they're in lunar or solar, they're still connected to their clique or their tribe or their gang, however you want to say it.
Hmm.
Those humans eventually developed thumbs, prefrontal cortex, and sarcasm. That made humans. So from this synthesis of those 3 magical forms, we have human consciousness, which for the longest time, nobody could read. Like we forget in modern day that there's thousands of years where all humans were illiterate. But now we kind of take literacy for granted, so much so that like I got books. I read books. Books are cool, but I know hella people who don't read books at all.
Uh-huh.
I don't hate on them. I just know that they're going to have a supremely limited vocabulary as compared to somebody who does read books,
Yeah.
because the readers will just get more information and intake. So just like a pride of lions or a school of fish or a flock of birds or a gaggle of geese, are going to group together. The human beings are going to group together and make the fifth dimensional consciousness. We finally got here. I just had to build some foundation so that we were able to get to this part.
Like carry the 2, add the 4.
And that fifth dimensional consciousness could be seen as a corporation, or it could be seen as a neighborhood, or a nation state, or an angel, or an alien, or an idea. I think all of these would be prime examples of fifth dimensional consciousness. Like when somebody has to go for the team, I have to do this for the company. That's like a higher state. Now, there would be like a sixth dimensional consciousness, which would be if you're going to uphold the morals that your grandparents instilled in you. Maybe you're trying to reach up to the next level and like make sure that you're doing things in God's will, per se. That could go up to the higher levels of consciousness. But a lot of that's theoretical because most people, they're somewhere between dogs and monkeys. We're obedient and we're kind of creative, but it takes a real special breed to ask questions. Do you know what I mean?
It takes 5 grams of dried pizza toppings in a dark room. That's funny. That's what I was thinking the whole time. I was like, oh, it's the stone ape theory, man. That's it. It's the stone ape theory.
That very likely could be it. It's possible that there's a potentiality where monkeys ate something and all of a sudden they needed to invent new sounds and new language so that they could share it.
I feel like that'd be an easy test. Just dose out a bunch of monkeys. Super unethical, but I'm surprised.
So do you know anything about John Cunningham Lilly?
I do not.
John C. Lilly is the guy who invented flotation tanks, isolation tanks. I love that technology. It's great. But anyway, he got a fund from the Navy and he was in a tank with a dolphin and another dolphin. And he and the dolphins were all on LSD. And it was paid for by the Navy. Because they wanted to see if you could talk telepathically to the dolphins if the dolphins were dosed too.
I have so much more respect for the Navy now.
Oh man, it's
They're
crazy.
like, we just want to know.
That's the thing. They gave him a grant to see what would happen for the human body if there was nothing. All right, so the grant was so there was no sensory input. They're like, what happens if there's no sensory input for the body? So he made a cardboard suit, like a cardboard suit that you stand in. But everybody got itchy, so you could only do like 5 minutes of tests. And then they got a helmet like an old school diver's helmet, and you'd float in the water. And you'd float in the water for a while and there's no sense stimulation. But then they finally reclined and you'd laid back in salt water. And that's when they realized that the brain has a really intense experience if there's no sense stimulation from body temperature water and floating on salty water. After they figured that out, they slowly introduced psychedelics to the brain. Because now you have a place where there's not even pressure on the spine from gravity. So it's a perfect container to see what a little bit of that ketamine is going to do intravenously. And boy, howdy, he saw 6-foot-tall avian bird people a la David Wilcock and went super deep on it. So that conversation just further impacts the fact that our narrative is what's important. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
John C. Lilling was looking for answers. His narrative was that he's looking for answers. So he kept looking and he kept finding these weird answers that were incomplete because his his purpose was incomplete.
So they got the flotation, they got that far, introduced the substances, and then what were the findings?
So the findings for the acid floating with the dolphins and the animal experiments, all that is still classified as far as I know.
Oh, bummer.
It has to do with the ethics of like, can you get consent from a flipper whale to make sure that he knows that he wants 12,000 micrograms? Like, does he know what he's getting into?
He'll let you know when you dose him. Trust me. Just do it.
For sure. Dang, what is this, like Johnny Mnemonic? We're gonna plug the dolphin in and get it to like read all the waves.
Dolphins are savage, I hear. Though I hear the dolphins family, the killer whales, and all the other ones can be quite savage. I don't know if I'd want to be the first one in a tank with a dolphin on site.
Oh man, see, what was a game changer for me is when I learned how they sleep.
How do they sleep?
Well, aquatic mammals sleep half their brain at a time.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Because they still got to go up for air and then breathe and then go back down. So they turn off half their brain and just go, and then go up and then turn off the other half their brain and then go, and then they're fully awake. So you could be talking to a half awake dolphin at any time.
Oh shit, that's wild. But have you seen the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy where the dolphins just peace out on Earth because humans blow it and they just fly away. They were actually aliens the whole time.
So long, and thanks for all the fish.
There it was. There it was.
All about this, definitely. I think
Nice.
that there's a lot of awesome nuggets of information that happen in science fiction. I'm not trying to say that like Scientology is correct because I think that's total nonsense. But the fact that people are writing
There's some
fiction,
gems there.
I'd say that there's gems in anything if you look close enough.
Uh-huh.
I just know that a lot of the precepts and principles of how Scientology is organized has to do with a top down, like a glass ceiling kind of attitude.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So in my mind, all of the timelines are now.
Uh-huh.
And anybody who's evoking from their throat, they are God. Now, what they're saying determines which deity or type of God they are. So if you're speaking life and blessings and love continuously, you're going to grow into a reality where that's what words make.
Uh-huh.
And if you're talking down or discipline or plan or focus or organize or upkeep, all of those things are what the echoes of your voice are going to make in a higher dimensional sense.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like that Emoto's whistle, where you can speak well on water and the water will change.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I feel you. I was like, who has that? Emotos? Yeah, the icicles.
Yep, for sure. The water crystals and talking about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's curious because we as human beings have some, trying to figure out the best way to phrase it. We have some projections that we're still digesting. Like a projection would be in an animal space, like a good dog or a bad dog, or like a good bird or a bad bird, or a good cat, or even a good man or a bad man. Like
Mm-hmm.
we have a lot of these that are sociologically imprinted on us from a culture that wasn't aware that it was doing imprints.
Mm-hmm.
It's like somebody did finger painting and then we use that finger painting to make like a
Mona
mint.
Lisa.
Yeah, now we're minting out Mona Lisas from somebody's finger painting, and they're like, "Whoa, I didn't know that it was going to be like mass distributed."
Good analogy.
So I got a question for you though.
Yeah, hit me.
What do you think the smallest change you could make that would have the largest positive impact in your life would be?
Smallest change for the largest impact.
Mm-hmm.
Oh fuck, consistency by far.
Dang, so it's in the continuity department?
Uh-huh.
Okay, for sure. And what kinds of things do you think consistency would be found easily through?
I repetition from me. Like that's why I was so big animated early when I talked about momentum, is because I know that I'm like unstoppable when I have momentum behind me. But it's also really hard for me to get momentum on something.
So you're in the Sisyphus thing for sure.
That's where I'm at. I don't know what Sisyphus is, but
Dang. Okay, no worries. For sure. Sisyphus is one of the old Greek myths that has to do with a dude who's pushing a boulder up a mountain.
oh, okay.
And his entire life is just pushing this boulder up the mountain. And
Uh-huh.
as soon as he gets up near the top, comes
Oh
rolling
fuck,
back
that's
down.
okay. Okay, so that's Sisyphus.
Right. And a Sisyphusian task would be like a task that's sort of menial and endless.
Uh-huh.
But the myth of Sisyphus actually has to do with he's pushing that rock to bid time for something else to happen. So as much as he doesn't like his task, he's doing that as the loading screen for something else to go on.
Oh.
And so as much as we don't like waking up early and going on a walk in the morning because it's kind of hard to get out of bed,
Uh-huh.
on your way at the end of the walk, all of a sudden you feel really alive because you were able to like turn that boulder out and get in biblical,
Stepped
climb
out the
back out.
door.
For sure. Right. You hear what I'm pointing at? So
Yeah, absolutely,
in
absolutely.
my mind, it's boiling it down. Like it's taking the principles and getting them all the way down to their core terpenes, to their core cannabinoids, finding out the things that make them tick, finding out inside what we want. And then
Mhm.
once you have that in sight, the clarity is instantly going to catalyze action. So many people are hyped up on like, I got to find out why I'm not succeeding or I have to find the perfect thing to do. It's like, no, you don't. All you need to do is get excited about the thing that's going to draw you towards it.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Word, word, word.
Nice. I feel like I just had a therapy session right now.
Dang.
I
Happy to
was like,
share.
what kind of things? I was like, no, actually fucking consistency. Like that would, oh my God, that would be, I mean, if we all just stuck to what we were supposed to be doing, it's, I guess it's sort of the age old thing of just fucking keep at it, but
Yeah, I think that's a dedication in it. If you want it to happen, you'll keep at it. But if you just wanted it to be a cheap dream that somebody kind of supported and then you sort of left them at the door, it'd be different. You could be hyped about getting a Tesla next week, or you could be hyped about, doing something else, getting really into 3D printing. Like, that's cool. All these topics are sweet, but it's
Yeah.
your excitement that's the driving force.
Yeah. Yeah. And understanding that you're not always gonna be excited. Like that was
Mm-hmm.
that's really where it's at. Like you're saying, I love walks, but I'm like, I love everyone loves a sunrise walk. Like, no, you'd have to be a lunatic, like a clinically insane person to not enjoy a crisp sunrise walk. But we hate the wake up, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Hate the
For
wake
sure.
up.
I think what's weird is that we're programmed to think that after we wake up, we're supposed to have salty, sugary, fatty foods. Like
Yeah.
whoever decided the American breakfast was eggs and bacon, you actually know that was a food salesman, right?
More carbs and sugar.
These were nutritionalists. It's just like all the shoe research that came out of the 60s. All the shoe research that Nike and Adidas are founded on was paid for by shoe companies. So it's not actual real foot research, which is why all of our feet are mangled.
Fact.
So much of the food that we eat, it's not actual food, it's food products. People are getting like frozen hash browns and having those every morning instead of having strawberries and bananas.
I know.
Now, I understand strawberries and bananas might not grow in your climate, so you want to find the things that are appropriate there, but like
You're angering
literally,
some permaculturalist vegans right now.
well, I mean, we are what we eat. And if they're really into the vegetables, they're going to hear that I'm just a rampaging string bean. So I'm not worried about it. Like, we're on the same team here.
I just harvested string beans today too, man. It was some string beans and some rough yellow summer squash. Steamed it with some nice organic butter, salt, and pepper, and it was one of the
Nice.
tastiest things I've eaten in a while. Because
Very
my
sweet.
diet has been lacking. It's just it's just one of those things. But anywho, I forgot what I was gonna say.
No worries. I want to make sure that you got ghee and register for your cookage because you mentioned you put some butter on those vegetables, and I know that ghee or clarified butter, that's got some good tokens for it. So
Yeah, so I do like butter. I'm not going vegan anytime soon. So what would you suggest for a good is it ghee? Is I've come
ghee,
across that
yep, GHEE, ghee is unclarified butter, so it does need to be refrigerated,
before. Uh-huh.
and it's like the top of it, the top of the sort of. Let me see if the churning when people are churning butter, the butter at the very top is considered ghee because it's like the highest quality. So there's a Gnostic publishing company called Glorian Publishing that does a bunch of teachings. There's this guy named Samael Muyor. I don't know if you know this guy's name. Uh, he was a mystic. He channeled a lot of stuff on daytime TV in Mexico in like the 80s. Like he was teaching about chakras and like red light therapy and a bunch of things on daytime TV, like soap opera time in Mexico. So he's got a lot of really cool recent stuff. But
That's cool.
yeah, it's super deep. Glorian Publishing is the name of the publishing company. But they did a thing about, or Glorian Publishing did a series about health and wellness, about food. And so, like, I did a couple-hour intensive on factory farming and an hour in like why it's important not to store your food in metal because canned food does like the reverse orgonite thing and it slows the vibration of the food inside the can. So through that learning, I learned about ghee. And they say if you are going to eat animal butters and animal fats, ghee is one of the healthier choices because it has less karma, because it's not processed as deeply as other kinds of butters are.
I see. So that's
So
part of the karmic debt when it comes to animal products is the level of processing. So if you compare it to say natives who bless the food, worship the food, use every part of the food, that it's that karmic sort of thing is lesser.
absolutely, the cycle has to go into it. For example, if you're going to eat some chicken right now, you're eating the chicken and you're getting the chicken's DNA because you're consuming the flesh of the chicken, and then you're kind of binding with the chicken's DNA, kind of, because you're getting cellular data from that experience. However, if that chicken grew up in your yard and you talked to it and it knew who you were, you kind of have a connection to it in resonance. That's going to be pretty close to your carrier tone. But if this chicken is from like a Tyson chicken factory and
Mhm.
it's covered in breaded and it's like add like a really not cage free life, then
Mm.
when you consume it, you're consuming like broken cell wall DNA chains. So that's causing your vessel to deteriorate into more dissonance, which it's not intrinsically bad. It just means that you're getting further away from the feelings of gratitude and happiness and
Yeah,
excitement and closer to the feelings of pain and sorrow and anguish.
that was beautifully said.
Word, I
Yeah.
practice.
No, I know. I can tell. I appreciate it. That's been sort of that was when I stopped doing the vegan thing. I wasn't doing it right. I was losing a lot of weight, hungry all the time. I did feel amazing for the first couple months, and then it kind of tapered off. But I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't doing it too right, like you said. Anywho, when I came back, it was like farmers market meat, like order them from there's a bunch of cattle farms around here. We see them. They're chilling in the California hills. They're happy. So it's like where I can do my part, you try to balance out that energy, that karmic debt, and
Right.
avoid the energy of the slaughterhouses when it all comes down to it. You know what I mean?
For sure. And it's the presence of mind. It's you're aware of it. So when you're consciously buying things and you're keeping that in mind, that means that the people around you are going to sort of have to process that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you're going to say, oh, you can't eat that because the animals who had that suffered unnecessarily. It's more so that you're just going to choose to have certain things. And then the people who choose to spend time around you are going to notice that you're having certain things.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot more shepherd than it is like blatant leader. I think everybody's looking for like, this is the leader, the savior's come, we'll all be better.
I
Like,
know. I
the
know.
Messiah complex is old. Like Russell Brand's stand-up set was great. The Messiah complex is great. You can get a lot of jokes out of that. But if you want to be the change you got to see in the world, that's like you have to be the change.
Yeah. That's funny because I forgot that it doesn't have to be a person too. It could be a plant or
And right,
it's
in
the
my mind,
Messiah
it's an
complex.
oversoul. It's a larger plug. So now when check this out, when you go to sleep tonight and when I go to sleep tonight and when everybody goes to sleep tonight, we're gonna kind of decompress what we did while we're awake. And not only myself, but yourself and all the listeners to this broadcast are going to know that there's other people kind of like them. So you're slowly building like this location independent resonance tribe.
Mm.
And it's the
Mm-hmm.
resonance that's important. It's not the location. It used to be location. You had to find people nearby that you could see every day because we were consolidating our trust in the appearance of others. But
Uh-huh.
now we live in a world of so much diversity, the sound of others is actually a cue for us rather than the presence or the feeling. Because you can feel somebody's heartbeat if you're in the room with them,
Yeah.
but they need to talk to you for you to figure out what mood they're in. Because if they're really mad, you're going to hear it in their voice.
Yeah.
But they could just like have a mad look on their face, and then you ask them, "Oh, hi." Like, "Oh,
Uh-huh.
well, you had a mad look on your face." "Oh, yeah, I was just thinking about something that's not related to here, but I was over there."
Uh-huh.
So digiphrenia is a big thing that we're working on, and I think that's a good to kind of start putting some closing landing times, get out the gear, so we can get back on planet Earth here.
Uh-huh.
Digiphrenia would be like schizophrenia in a digital space. So it's when people identify with their Twitter account and they only feel good when they get Twitter likes, or they identify with their Instagram. So if you argue with them on Instagram, they get all huffy and pissy because they're having a mania, a frenetic dissociation where they think that they are the account. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. So to drive that would mean that your online presence is responsible for talking to other people who have online presences that will either keep you in check or they'll reinforce your energy. I think we're here to save our own ass kind of thing.
What do you mean?
We don't have to know how to get out of the cave. We just have to know that we're not trapped here because we're with other people.
I see. I see. And that's part of your what did you call it? The resonance, the
Right.
sleep time resonant independent location that you were talking about.
Yeah, location independent resonance
Yeah, I
tribe.
was like, oh fuck, what was the order of the words?
For sure. No worries. You're good. I'm freewheeling all the time. I think wordsmithing is important because people have to create contexts and concepts in order for them to be shared.
Yeah, you
But
gotta be able to articulate yourself.
absolutely. And I think on a real legitimate tip, you're helping individuals create an esoteric language. Because if somebody's only reading tarot cards a little bit, or if somebody's only doing a little bit of exploring into pagan earth religions, and then they dial into a channel like yours, all of a sudden they're able to hear a dialogue of people who want to read books and want
Yeah,
to
no,
discuss
that's
like
important.
for sure, absolutely. I know when I was a youngling, if there was somebody in my field who was reading books by candlelight talking about topics that I wanted to know, for damn sure I would have tuned in because there was nobody around that. At
Uh-huh.
that time, there was nobody leading that wave. And I think it's up to people to be the leaders of the tribes they want and the communities they want.
And there's so
So,
many different kinds of tribes you can make, and can be like you can have a 2-person community and like
mm-hmm.
the rest of your life slay it. And that doesn't mean you have to stick to it. You could join a 10-person community and then the two vibes blend and you have a separate entity. And it's just like, but you gotta show up and have the dialogues and be sincere about it. That's which and I've managed to do that. Like all the speakers, like you're saying, I've been able to get that resonant frequency, if you want to call it that. It's been
For
pretty
sure.
like
I'd say there's also social currency.
that's a hot topic word. What do you mean
Right.
by that? What's
I
your
think
definition for
the social
it?
currency would be, can the person stand by what they're saying?
Uh-huh.
If somebody like, all right, here's a ridiculous example. I'm gonna go big with it.
Hit me.
We got some celebrity person recently announcing they want to run for president.
Yes.
All right, cool. Well, I mean, if that person wants to create that narrative, they're redirecting all of the attention towards that. But if you say that you're going to do a full moon or a new moon reading, you're redirecting all your attention and energy towards that projection and that objective.
Uh-huh.
There are a lot of individuals who think that the measurement of success is how many likes do you get or how many followers do you have, not the quality of the content that you're making, because quality will sell itself. Quality content creates followers from the fact that it's quality, but it's only, I don't know, only fools who try to polish dog shit.
Can't
And there's a
hold
lot,
the turd. Yeah.
and that doesn't stop people from trying. I mean, they'll cover it with gold paint and say it's the next best thing. But when you're actually taking the time to make the broadcast that you might not know what the broadcast has, you might not know what you're going to talk about, but you're willing to go there anyway, means that you're sort of like Weird Al Yankovic. You're carving a new dialogue. You're making new pop culture to be discussed because now we're singing about my this here Anakin guy. Like that's not what the song was about, but everybody who's heard that has that like,
Love
cool,
that song.
we're in Amish paradise now. This is rad. Like that kind of social responsibility to me is to bring up pop culture, to bring up Ninja Turtles, to make jokes about that stuff, because that reminds us that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
But if we're only talking about like Australia's on fire or this is happening or this is happening, these are powerful things that need our attention for sure. But if we're distracted by them rather than thinking, okay, well, how am I contributing to the ozone layer? How am I, making sure that I'm not driving unnecessarily, because that's part of what creates these global fires. So I'd say that's probably the best plan that I could recommend for you right now, Keith, is to make sure that you get up in that early morning sun, because then you're going to get your hot yoga in before noon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, do love that. I just gotta start doing yoga in the sun, man. That's as close as I can get to hot yoga. It's funny because my partner's taking yoga training courses right now. So
nice, way sweet for sure. I went through yoga teacher training last year, and I realized that I should have been teaching yoga for a long time. After I went through the teacher training, I was like, wow, this is a different thing. But I've been coaching Tai Chi and Qigong for a little while, so I kind of keep all these pieces connected.
There was a real special moment in my life where I was doing Tai Chi classes, and it was awesome.
Nice.
And it was I was going every week. I was longboard. I was living in San Francisco at the time, and I would longboard all the way down, up and down the hills and shit. And I'd do the Tai Chi. I'd go every week. It's a magical, nice. I don't know, something kind of je ne sais quoi about Tai Chi, and I like it though.
For sure. I mean, you can't really describe the subtle ones.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, because there's Tai Chi and Qigong. And the only real difference between those would be Tai Chi is a repeated form, where it's like complicated, where Qigong is a simple repeated form. So just find something really simple and over again. And that's, so Qi would be earth energy. I got a little rampage. I'll kind of throw this down to kind of bring to an end, because I'm not trying to keep you on for too long. But then again, it's your broadcast, so.
Well, I was gonna say we should end on a card that I pulled for the meeting that's super cool and relevant. So we'll
sweet.
wind it
Cool.
down with that.
I'll run a couple elements and then we'll close this up, because this also ties back into the Western magical tradition, which we talked about near the beginning.
Boom.
So these are arbitrary words. These are just my words. They're not the words, but I tried to describe all the elements in a way that we could talk about. So the first one would be ki, or fire, Ki. So ki is martial arts. It's skateboarding, snowboarding. It's that active, that fiery aspect, sitting in the sauna. That would be your ki, and you can get inner ki or outer ki. So chi would be Tai Chi. It's water. That's actually the hydrogen molecules that are radiating from your skin. So if you feel good vibes or bad vibes from people, more often than not, that's their hormones that are moving through the air, and you as a human being are sensing those. Qi would be the language that I use for earth. So it's the earth, the growing energy, when somebody's really stable in their roots. Like you talk to some old timers, some individuals from time past, and they're just like trees. Like they're just unfuckwithable. They have a really strong spine. Their Qi energy is high. Kun would be what I use for air. And like Kundalini would be like a balanced sort of use of air, Kun breath. And then unbalanced would be like Tasmanian devil. Like, and then boom, tired, done. So behind that would be Ni. And Ni would be like the void or the emptiness. Like in the chair that you're sitting in right now, when you get up, that chair is now full of Ni. It's full of emptiness. So within yourself, there is emptiness, and you can learn about the empty within yourself.
Uh-huh.
So being able to build relationships with the fire and the earth and the air and the water. I mean, you can go Captain Planet with it if you want, but I think it's really
Let's do
accepting
it.
that fire is more than we are. Earth is more than we are. Air is more than not only us as like finite beings, but also our species. Like get all the humans at once and then get the biggest piece of fire you can and put them together and who's going to win? Like fire always wins. So it's humbling ourselves to realize that we are the spirit that has the vessel to drive. Like this
Yeah.
is our paper mache with a machine, basically. Paper mache with an engine, I guess would be another way to say it. But a lot of it's reflection. And I'm very aware that a lot of people that I'm talking to only talk to me because I speak at 1,000,000 words a minute. So individuals who don't want to talk this fast or this deep, I don't think there's anything wrong, and I don't think they're dumb. I just know that we're a certain level of sensitive, the people who can empathically feel and can kind of get that vibe. So we have a responsibility to make sure that we're there for each other.
As we should be.
Facts, for sure.
Especially right now.
Now I'm super curious about this card that you've drawn because, yeah, I think more than ever, 2020 is the time that we need to make sure to click up and to be around the people who not only give a fuck about us, but also they give a fuck about what we give a fuck about.
Yeah. And are fucking making moves, you know what I mean? And are actually like going through the moves, you know what I mean?
For sure, for
So
sure.
that's healthy. All right, so this card that we'll wrap it up on this. I say that, but I've pulled a card and talked for an hour before.
I got time, you square, for sure.
I just wanted to pull a card, and if you caught a glimpse of the video earlier, I was like, "Fuck, everything's so heavy." And even the card, every reading I've done since the beginning of the year has been some heavy ass card with a nice spin. Like, it's really heavy, but that's only because you have so much potential. And it's like, all right, I get it, but can I just start with the potential and go better potential instead of like through hell to heaven kind of thing? And then I pulled a card that I've actually never pulled before, the Princess of Pentacles. Of Echoing Hills, and it was nice. It was like, oh, it was a good. And I'll read it. I wouldn't consider myself a tarot reader.
No worries. You said Princess of Pentacles?
Princess of Pentacles.
Cool. Can you get something on the screen? I know it'll be blurry from the camera, but can I see
Oh, that's
it?
right. I can do screen share, so I'll get it on the screen, and then I'll.
Oh, word, for sure.
Here's. You see it?
Yep, Page of Pentacles, for sure.
Let's see. So
Princess.
I have
very
two
good.
Princess page. So the open-minded novice can look at a situation with fresh eyes and get down to the essentials with confidence. I really appreciated this one, so I'll read the general meeting. We'll go ham and the advice because that's what we pulled it. So this card's energy has to do with learning about compound interest and abundance. Her attention is focused on learning the natural laws that pertain to natural synergies. Whether the learning is about growing vegetables, the stock market, or culturing new medicines in the lab, this page wants to understand the underlying mechanism that supports the creation of results and abundance. You may see this person in the position of the attendant or junior partner, but that is only a current appearance. That demeanor of humility, I like that demeanor of humility or servitude will soon enough disappear as her sense of mastery increases. By studying the example of those around her, successful and unsuccessful, she's building a game plan that will lift her from the obscurity and make her successful in her own right. She just has to collect the necessary education and experience, which we talked about this whole thing, experience, which is what she's doing now. And first and foremost, I just wanted to say that it's like this card is almost like you in a sense that it's very methodical and almost mechanical. Like you seem like you have what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost like a computer mind. Like you almost operate in like you said binary thinking earlier, and I'm like, he thinks binary. I would imagine this guy sees code like the Matrix. So it was cool to get a sort of, it's tarot, it's wishy-washy, but it's all about finding knowledge, distilling shit to its most simple form, getting the abundance, getting the shit, whether it's food or whether it's a stock market, which isn't spiritual at all, quote unquote, you know what I mean? So it was like, oh, this was nice. I liked it. I don't know if I wanted to add anything on that before I moved on to the advice.
I'm digging. I think it's relevant. I'm all about what you're dropping. Please keep leading the way.
Keep going. So the advice position, which is what we got it, says the page of coin in this position advises that you study your chosen field seriously, gaining intellectual knowledge plus whatever experiential learning you can pick up as well. Listen to the stories of others, both their successes and failures, and let yourself be inspired by their dedicated efforts. That's cool. Leave no stone unturned. See if you can figure out why their experiments went the way they did and what you might do differently that could change the outcome. Passionately hunt for the missing pieces overlooked by those. Patiently hunt for the missing pieces overlooked by those who came before you. Remember that the mind of a beginner is an open channel for genius. Let that openness lead you, and you will instinctively penetrate to the heart of the matter.
Ooh,
That was awesome.
very nice.
That was awesome. I read that. I was like, that's one of the coolest cards I think I've ever read. Practical, to the point, like very useful, humble, but like powerful at the same time.
For sure, for sure. And I think it's also exemplifying the power and humility.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, there's going to be something different when you get to like the King of Cups. You know what I mean? There's a
Uh-huh.
totally different energy involved.
Uh-huh.
But that kind of building up to the royalty, I really think that a lot of the people that I consider kinship were like a form of galactic royalty that kind of showed up, and
Uh-huh.
now we have these human monkey bodies, and we kind of figure out how to talk with other people. But in our brains, we live in a planet and in a world where people are just legit to each other, and things are
Uh-huh.
just healthy, and stuff just works. And when
Uh-huh.
something's broken, it just gets fixed. Like
Uh-huh.
that's the resonating operating tone. So yeah, I'd say vibe is tribe. It's definitely the direction that you lead. And I mean, I don't tend to talk about this too much, but divination is my least favorite form of magic. Like I got mad respect when you're rolling with it and the objectives that you use it for. I say it's
Yeah.
my least favorite because I know a lot of people who want to do like a 9-card spread
Mm-hmm.
and then ask another question and do a 9-card spread and then ask another question, do a 9-card spread. And so they've spread the entire deck in a day, and tomorrow they're making the same choices they would have made if they didn't even touch the deck to begin with.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather grab a card or two every moon cycle or so and really like deep bake and think about it and get from it what it wants to share. Because I learned tarot, color magic, and the Kabbalah all at the same time.
I don't
So
know what color magic is.
color magic would be
That where you put circled colors in different parts of your house on the walls so that it brings through certain energies. Because I've heard.
you could if you want to, but color magic is independent from any physical form. So like you could just take a deep breath in right now and imagine that you're exhaling a cloud of red, and that would be root color work. You could
Yeah.
breathe in blue and you could cleanse your throat and then breathe out if you have the color association. So
That's funny. Ever since I don't even know why I started this. I was in high school and I would work out. If I was maxing out in between every rep, I'd put my two fingers good and I'd breathe in blue and I'd exhale red. And I've
dang.
done that at the gym for at least the past. I'm 32
Mm,
now, so for at least the past
mm,
18, 20 years, every
dang.
3 days, like you know what I mean. That's good, and I've always done it. I wasn't into spirituality and
Dang.
shit when I was younger, but and it fucking works, man.
For sure. So that could be seen as some fierce color magic. That could be seen as a neuro-linguistic programming meta program exercise where you have your breath as the meta cue and you're using hue to assign meaning. I would say, if possible, flip those colors and sometime try to breathe in the other color and then breathe out the other color and see how that affects your reality. But there's a lot that can be done. Color therapy is another one. I don't tend to assign meanings to colors. I think all the colors are sort of their own elements, so they don't have like a fixture. Because red could be passion, or it could be rage, or it could be boredom because they're stopped at a stoplight. It depends upon the person.
True.
So the system I learned was color magic, and then all of the Sephira of the Kabbalah, and then each of the suits and each of the tarot cards. And I did an intensive that lasted like 3 months.
Damn.
So yeah, I got like a hard bake. And
Yeah.
I was raised in the Roman Catholic Church, and I had a lot of questions early, so I explored
Shout out.
Druidry. Word, for sure, for sure. Pushing through, I found that we make our own spirituality. So I encourage people to like be the architect of your own church, be the spiritual manifester of what you want your system to be. Because like if you pray to John Lennon every night, that's who you're working with. And if it's your higher self or whatever nebulous, grand, omnipotent denominator you want, like just call it what you want.
Uh,
It's important that there's the piety. It's the reverence. You got to remember that like we are a finger. The hand is as important as the finger, if not more so.
uh-huh.
So I look forward to catching more broadcasts of things that you're doing, and I'm very grateful for your time. Any closing notes?
I was about to say we should just end it on that because I was golden. Nice.
Word.
I don't think I have anything else. Sorry you guys if you guys had a ton of questions and I didn't get to it. Thank you for the super chats. Appreciate it. Candy Makowski and Sarah. I would love to get you on again, man.
Word, absolutely. Totally down. Let me know. I'll be connected in your Discord as well if anybody wants to continue a conversation there.
Oh yeah, do you want to throw your email or
Yeah.
some paraphernalia of yourself so we can follow you, get sessions if we want from you, and
For
that
sure.
sort of thing?
I've got a couple web presences right now. I think the easiest one is going to be a link tree.
Do you want me to type that in, or do you want to handle it in the chat room?
I'll drop it in the chat real quick here as well, but it's link. So linktr.ee/RichieZXY. So Linktree is pretty neat. It's like a website for websites. I'm also at rainbowcrystal.org. That's probably the easiest one. Rainbow Child, Crystal Child. We're kind of get that new wave thing going on. We got to steal it back from the new age community. I think a
All
lot
right.
of people.
Well, our next video is going to be an hour long of pure crystal magic and crystal child shit because I'm bummed we didn't touch on that. I forgot that was the thing you did. Cool.
For sure.
Hey, comment on the video after I post it too, so that I can pin it. That way, people coming after the fact can get that website.
Easy
and
peasy.
Email address too.
For sure. Sounds good to me. Thank you so much for this chat on the full moon. Please remember to stay awesome, but I know you got that covered.
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate it. Seriously, the talk was awesome. I love fucking this. This is what I live for on this channel, and it was great.
Very sweet. Well, the honor is mine. I appreciate it. Take care, man of leathers.
Talk to you soon.
Peace.